the maternal father of the Pokémon world. This video is purely for entertainment and does not infringe on copyrights or laws. The rights to the novel and image belong to the original author. We do not claim ownership. Don't like waiting and want to listen to this fanfic in full now? Subscribe to our Patreon, where you'll find the best fanfics. Chapter 51. Leave me alone. Soon, the rain was over, and the sky was clear and the sky was getting brighter. Several mounted policemen riding armored rhinos also came to the villa at this time, and joined Yumi, who came earlier. Don't worry. Although the prisoner is very cunning and even used wild divers, in the end, Junsha saw through his tricks. Ha ha ha. Yumi told other Junshas about her great achievements. Eminem rolled his eyes behind him. Sonoko was sitting on Yumi's case dog at this time, and everyone else was also preparing to leave this villa with not so good memories, seeing Liangai being escorted away. Xiaolin was still a little puzzled and said, "But why didn't he just let the variety monster hold Ms. Chikako hostage and stay in the villa by himself? Then his alibi is not there. Is there a flaw?" I think it's probably because he doesn't want the diversity to be stained with the blood of innocent people. Xiaoxia also said, only guessing. Point indeed. Calculated in this way, no matter who attacked Sonoko or Chikako, it was Ryoichi himself, and diversity only played a cooperative role. Point. If it was the variety monster who threw Zijiazi down the mountain, I'm afraid that now we have to concentrate the police force to search the mountain and search for that ever-changing monster. After all, if it is a wild Pokémon that is targeted and maliciously harming humans, it is still necessary to expel or imprison it. Point. Now it is precisely because diversified monsters are not directly involved. When they turned into Death's Coffin, they only scared Yuanzi and the others, and did not directly attack. M was commanding 3 Pokémon, and the one who fought against it at that time. I discovered that the level of that diversified monster should be very high. Point. At that time, if the opponent didn't take the initiative to retreat, Eminem, who didn't bring naughty bombs, would be weak even in 3vs1, and after all, it's just a wild Pokémon. If Ryoichi let it attack humans, it might not be obedient. Asheng added some sarcasm from the side. Point. Asheng now knows that the prisoner is Ryoichi, so he is not so afraid, but resents Ryoichi for embarrassing him. Point. But at this moment, there was only a loud noise. It was a shadow ball, which hit in front of several armored rhinos, stirring up waves of dust and blocking the way forward. Point. Then I saw a death god's coffin floating out of the forest on the side. Point. It is said to be a death coffin, but if you look carefully, you will find that there are no eyes that are as big as copper bells and flashing red light that are unique to the death coffin, but a pair of bean eyes. Not in the mountains and forests. It is particularly easy to find this. Ryoichi, who had already been handcuffed, shouted at this time, "Coffin, coffin. That's enough. There is no need to continue. Stop, Ditto. You will only deepen his sin." Yumi also stood up at this time and began to appease Ditto with Junsha's power. At this time, Yumi stretched out her arms, with the palm of her right hand facing the variety monster, and her left hand supported her right wrist. The invisible Junsha power dissipated and communicated with the variety monster. Although there are other reinforcement Junsha, only she is the real Junsha clan, and the others are just ordinary Junshas. Change. Death's Coffin. No, Ditto is very excited, and his tone is very calm, like the tone of Death's Coffin in the illustrated book, but the cry is still Ditto. He just used you to complete the alibi. Yumi continued to persuade, much more patiently than when dealing with humans. Ryoichi, who was being handcuffed, gritted his teeth and shouted, "That's right. I'm just using you. I'm not a ghost trainer. Stay away from me." Dittomon itself is a normal type, but, generally speaking, the number of transformations that a Dittomon can transform is limited, and there will be a tendency to attribute. If it can already become a death coffin, then record the ghost type Pokémon. The form is simpler in this case. It is not the ghost system, but better than the ghost system. Change. Ditto is obviously not so easy to drive away. Minister. Yumi, is this the Pokémon that cooperates with the murderer? The other Junchus on the side also became alert. Point minister should refer to the Minister of Inspection, the police rank of Pokémon World, which sounds majestic, but in fact it is only the third from the bottom, and it is also the starting police rank of the real Junsha clan. Point and Yumi also glanced over at this time and emphasized, no, didn't you hear it? It's just a wild Pokémon being used. Eminem also noticed this detail at this time. The mainstream consciousness in this world has always been very tolerant of Pokémon. The widely accepted argument is that Pokémon has no bad intentions. If it does something bad, it must be instigated by the trainer. This is the same as animation very similar after Zinai was killed. Army also understood a little bit, and this statement does have some truth, of course. For the sake of territory or other reasons, the violent behavior of some wild Pokémon is not considered a bad thing, and pranks are not counted. Point on the basis of the tolerance of the mainstream consciousness. The more tolerant ones are the Junsha clan. They love Pokémon very much. The full name of the power should be the power of you are all being used by bad trainers. Please stop. Point it is also this kind of power that has freed mankind from the age of ancient warfare, made Pokémon no longer a weapon for the human army, and promoted the opening of the era of alliances without troops. In contrast to this is what the Rockets and most of the accuser organizations believe in. Pokémon should be used as a tool for humans, and humans should make more use of Pokémon. Their core concepts are different, but they all is supported by this argument. Point of course, Eminem feels that both are more extreme, especially the latter, and the latter is more destructive. Point and there are not a few people in the league who think this way, so there is a current balance. Point like now, if Ditto directly harmed the victim before, then even if Yumi didn't want to, she could only take it as the criminal's Pokémon. Take it in first, and after evaluation, decide whether to put it in a special protected area or release it into the wild. Point. But now that the Ditto was not directly hurting people, she made up her mind and wrote in the report that this wild Ditto was only being used to scare people, and she was not even willing to capture it. Point. However, now the variety monster is directly blocking the way to rob people, which is a bit. I have a talent for ghosts. Don't compete with me. Amu suddenly stood up at this moment. Yumi was taken aback when she saw this and immediately realized that Eminem was going to treat the current situation as a battle to catch wild Pokémon. Point. That's right. Eminem thinks the Junsha clan and the Jidea organization are too extreme. As an animal trainer, Eminem feels that Pokémon has no bad intentions, but beware of being used by bad guys, and Pokémon should be used as a tool for humans, and there is no conflict between the two. Tool is not a derogatory term. The basis of an animal trainer is to take responsibility for the beast he trains. Wait. This is an attack. Junsha, who was on the side, was about to say something when Yumi interrupted directly. It turns out that you want to tame Pokémon. Okay. Then hurry up. Don't delay our return to Giantian City. Come out. Boom. Chapter 52. In the past, Naughty Thunderball didn't listen to Eminem's command at all, let alone help Eminem on the battlefield. But, on the one hand, Emu's ability is improving. On the other hand, when Naughty Layden was on guard in the villa, he was deceived by this variety monster, so he thought he had lost face, and wanted to beat it. Change. The four shadow hands behind the death coffin gathered together, and the energy of the ghost system suddenly gathered. Boom. Use 100,000 volts to knock it back. Seeing the death's coffin used Shadow Ball, Amu immediately commanded Naughty Thunderbolt to attack it. I saw the Shadow Ball thrown by the shadow hand of the death coffin met the thunder and lightning released by the Naughty Thunderbolt in an instant, and both of them were cancelled out in a burst of explosions. There is not much difference in the power of the skills of the two sides, so this phenomenon will appear. It is not like in the game, you hit me, and I hit you without interfering with each other. Seeing this, Eminem also had guesses in his heart. Sure enough, this diversified monster should be close to the growth limit of a wild Pokémon in a normal state, that is, around level 50. No wonder they were so calm when facing the coconut egg trees. Boom. Fight around it. Eminem judged immediately. Playing around is not, because you can't beat, and Boom is already level 50, but to expand your advantage, Naughty Thunderbolt obviously belongs to the type of fast movement speed and skill preparation speed. I saw Naughty Thunderbolt with lightning wrapped around his body. under the chaos of the audience, although the movement speed of Death Coffin is not too slow, especially the hand protruding from the shadow can be said to be elusive, but you can't touch its edge at all. After avoiding the shadow hand stretched out by the Death Coffin again, Eminem commanded, use 100,000 volts A. 100,000 volts, swept towards the coffin of the god of death, and struck straight. The god of death's coffin floated back, as if it had been severely injured, but it still stabilized again. When a determined transforms into another Pokémon, the racial value other than physical strength is also calculated according to the transformed Pokémon, but the growth level will not change. That is, a determined at level 50 will become another Pokémon. Pokémon is still level 50. The racial value of Reaper's Coffin is 483 points, which is slightly lower than the 490 of Naughty Thunderbolt, and the physical value of Reaper's Coffin is 58, while Ditto's physical value is still 48 points of Ditto, after it becomes Reaper's Coffin. Equivalent to a Death Coffin with slightly weakened physical strength, the Ghost type Pokémon is the most different from other Pokémon in the fighting stage other than skills, because they will not be subjected to pure physical impact, nor can they cause physical impact of body collision. The two sides can only energy attack. It seems that the hand protruding from the shadow is formed by the condensed energy of the Ghost system. And the Naughty Thunder Bomb does not show weakness, the whole body is covered in lightning, and it will not suffer if it really collides. Death Coffin's special attack race value is 95 points, which is 15 points higher than Naughty Thunderbolt. But Eminem estimates that the growth value of Wild Diversis must be low. It is impossible to exceed 20%, and it may even be less than 15%. What's more, Naughty Thunderbolt also accepted Eminem's command. Try to avoid fighting outside of skills. Use Energy Ball. Naughty Thunderball used the skill for the third time. 100,000 volts and Energy Ball are about the same power, and Boom's proficiency in both is similar, and there is no additional restraint or resistance to ghosts, so Eminem uses them interchangeably. In this real Pokémon world, skills are not limited in number of times. The main limitation of using skills is the physical strength of Pokémon itself. But 4 dominant genes are like forming 4 bridges. If you always take one of them, it will indeed consume more, and sometimes it will be overloaded and stagnant. It is said that divine beasts, and some extremely special circumstances, can break through the restriction of the 4 dominant genes. Here the Energy Ball still hits, and the Reaper's Coffin is hit hard again, and just when the Death Coffin finally lasted, and when the skills were ready. Just after condensing the Shadow Ball, Eminem commanded again, 100,000 volts. Hit it back, and like the strategy that Eminem used most often in the battle before, Eminem can offset it this time, and offset it. After all, there is still a huge difference between the two sides. The strongest item of the Reaper's Coffin is physical defense, with a race value of 145 points, while the strength of the Naughty Thunderbolt is speed, with a race value of 150. Which is 5 times that of the Reaper's Coffin. Although the speed of accumulating skills is not equal, the time it takes for Death Coffin to prepare a skill is enough for Naughty Lebo to use skills 3 times. When Eminem was fighting before, most of the time he was inclined to attack the main body and not to offset the opponent's skills. Instead, he would hardwire the opponent's skills in order to pursue hit guarantees. However, in Naughty Thunderbolt vs Death's Coffin, Diversified Monster, Eminem is more inclined to use fast to fight slow and offset skill kills. After all, the speed of Naughty Thunderbolt is enough to take the time to launch 2 additional skills between each skill used by Death's Coffin, and the advantage of Death's Coffin. Physical defense is useless when fighting against Naughty Mind Bombs. Boom relies entirely on special attack skills to output. Eminem also took good time. Whenever Death's Coffin is ready for skills, Naughty Thunderbolt must be ready and waiting for confrontation. If it is the Reaper's Coffin cultivated by Eminem against the ancient mischievous Thunderbolts of Boom's strength, under Eminem's training, the growth rate will definitely be biased towards special attack, which will have an advantage when facing waves. And the Reaper's Coffin can also learn a lot of auxiliary skills to reverse the situation. However, the Death's Coffin transformed from the Wild Ditto has a very rigid fighting style. After being dragged into the rhythm by Boom commanded by Eminem, he is just passively beaten. Boom. Use 100,000 volts. Another Thunderbolt struck the Reaper's coffin, and at the same time as the Reaper's coffin was severely injured, the movement trembled. It was the electric energy that invaded its body, causing it to appear paralyzed. Not only the skill preparation speed becomes slower, but also the movement is sometimes sluggish due to paralysis. Taking advantage of this opportunity, Eminem immediately threw the elf ball, but although it was unable to dodge and lack physical strength due to paralysis, the spirit ball took it in, but it bounced out immediately, and the spirit ball was also scrapped. Can you do it? You can't subdue Pokémon like this. Yumi was also a little anxious on the side point indeed. It seems that this is Eminem's first attempt to normally tame Pokémon, although weakening the physical strength is helpful to subdue, but if the opponent is too resistant, it will definitely not be subdued, unless, Yumi muttered behind her, as if she was talking about ancient times and barbarians. Amu didn't listen carefully, but had an idea. Ryoichi, if I hadn't saved Chikako with CPR and artificial respiration in time, you would have committed murder. How can you thank me? I really thank you very much. Ryoichi glared at Amu first, and then thought about the situation of Capricorn, so he had no choice but to thank Amu reluctantly, with a very sincere look point on the other side. When Naughty Layden was covered in lightning, and when he knocked the death coffin over again, Eminem threw the elf ball again, this time the death coffin. No, it was the resistance of the diversity, which was obviously much smaller, and was finally subdued. Yumi was on the side, and she also breathed a sigh of relief, and then she didn't forget to remember to increase the bond with it in the future, otherwise you will still be abandoned. Then Yumi looked at the other Junsha and said, okay, don't watch the excitement, hurry up and send the prisoner back. Zank Junsha, were we just watching the fun? Chapter 53. How about a new name for a fresh start? Small change. If it doesn't work, a big change. Look, why are you in a hurry again? Alliance. On April 18th, 200, Eminem communicated with the Ditterman that had just been conquered in the Pokémon Center of Giantian City, and in his room point at this time, I saw a large puddle of pink gel-like object wriggling on the ground, only the existence of two P's, which showed that it was not a puddle of colloid, but Ditto doesn't appreciate it obviously. The two beady eyes stared at Eminem blankly, but when Eminem wanted to name it, he either turned his eyes away from Eminem, or was annoyed. It swelled up, and hit Eminem a somersault. If you don't like it, we can change it again. You have such piercing eyes. Let me call you Brother Dow respectfully. No, that's right. This is after the Ditterman turned into the death coffin, and locked Eminem in it. Okay, then, I'll call you a coffin. Eminem crawled out of the coffin covered in bandages, and at the same time, compromised understandingly. Only then did the coffin change back to the diversified monster's body point. While taking off the bandages, Eminem muttered, it's a pity that these bandages will disappear after a while, otherwise they can be directly used as medical equipment. These bandages are essentially formed by Eminem's own physical strength. If it is a Pokémon, if it is affected by the power of the death coffin, it will even temporarily disable the characteristics because the power of the characteristics turns into a bandage. This is also the origin of the effect of the death god's coffin. Mummy. However, it is not easy to lock Pokémon into one's body. Usually, it can be done by using the nature of ghost-type Pokémon. When the opponent is fighting in close quarters, when Naughty Thunderball fought with it before, it didn't give it a chance at all. They all attacked from a distance and didn't fight. This is Eminem being involved and wrapped in bandages. It just consumes some energy. If someone without the talent of a ghost trainer was involved in the death coffin, even if it was not a malicious attack like killing a tomb robber, his life would be short. Although it may only lose a few days or more than 10 days of life at a time, but if it accumulates over time, no one can bear it. This is also the reason why ghost Pokémon cannot be trained casually. Seeing how empathetic Eminem is, Ditto changed back to its original form, then squirmed to the window, looking out with its two bean eyes similar to Boom's initial situation. Coffin doesn't pay attention to Eminem at all now. Even worse than Boom was then. After all, Boom just didn't fully approve of Eminem at that time, but now the coffin somewhat rejects Eminem. Or rejects other trainers. Coffin, I haven't been sleeping well recently. I need a narrow and dark place to fall asleep. How about you turning into a coffin of death and letting me sleep? When Armu was inside, he felt that animal perception was especially effective. Indeed, among ghost trainers, this method of training death coffins has been circulating, but only trainers with ghost talent can play like this. As for this Ditto, since it can be turned into a death coffin, Eminem thinks it might work, but Ditto squirmed and turned his two eyes around, then stretched out his tentacles fluidly, and lifted the hanging sheet, as if to say, then you can sleep under the bed. Slim Shady. Armu also knew that there was no rush, so she went to have dinner first, and then made an appointment with Xiaoxia to go to the flying gymnasium in Jianshan City tomorrow. Yuanzi sprained her ankle badly, and she is expected to rest for a few days, so she can't go together, and she doesn't live in the Pokémon Center. Early the next morning, Armu and Xiaoxia came to the gymnasium in Jianshan City on time. Armu found the challenge rules for the second badge on the bulletin board at the door, and found that it was indeed the same as the rules for the first one. After all, 1 badge and 2 badges. There is nothing too much in terms of authority. The big difference is that there is just one more Pokémon Rider certification qualification. They are just getting started, and the difficulty naturally has no essential difference. At most, it is in the selection of candidates, and maybe the second badge is for students who have studied in the gymnasium for a longer time. I found it, the official gymnasium of Jianshan City. The second badge challenges the rules. 2 Pokémon, the standard single rules. The gymnasium prohibits flying. Armu read accordingly. It's not surprising that flying is forbidden. This move is very similar to dig hole. In this world, this kind of skill does not allow Pokémon to fly high, but allows Pokémon to accumulate power in the air. In this way, when the next skill preparation is completed, you can perform a charge dive or underground sneak attack. As for charging, you can avoid the opponent's attack, whether in the sky or underground. However, this also leads to a problem, which is very common among flying trainers. Some novice trainers will pay too much attention to the advantage of my Pokémon can fly, and the opponent's Pokémon can't, in order to make Pokémon fly high and dodge for a long time. But in fact, this is considered a bad fighting habit. Not only is it a matter of viewing, but flying too high will not be able to launch an effective attack on the opponent. In the end, it is just a waste of time and one's own physical strength. Therefore, many flying gymnasiums will deliberately correct this habit of students and prohibit flying too high in the battle. After Armu and Xiaoxia signed up, they started the same process as the physical examination. When checking the Pokeballs, Eminem only submitted 3 Pokeballs this time, namely Coconut Egg Tree, Nidorino, and Froggrass Naughty Thunderbolt and Atoman. Are not suitable for use in the competition right now. Otherwise, even the former will be somewhat resistant, and the latter is likely to ignore Eminem. Moreover, only 2 Pokémon can be used for the second badge, and submitting 3 is a choice of 2 points. Soon it was Eminem's turn. Number 99. Challenger Eminem, please enter the 103 challenge field. Under the guidance of the radio, Eminem came to a challenge field on the first floor as the flying gymnasium. The official gymnasium of Jianshan City has only 2 floors on the site, or even, in a narrow sense, it can be said to have only 1 floor. The battles with less than 4 badges were fought in indoor venues with high ceilings, while the battles with 4 to 6 badges were all fought upstairs, that is, in the open air on the roof. Eminem quickly saw his opponent, a child who looked confident on his face. It was a child, but it should be only 2 or 3 years younger than Eminem. As soon as he saw Eminem, he said confidently to Convenience, "You are unlucky to meet me. Today is my last day, and I will be the examiner for the second badge. Next time, I will go to the third badge. Challenge field." "Oh, congratulations," Eminem said without sincerity, "but you don't have to be discouraged." The referee on the sideline seemed to be unable to listen to this guy's long-winded words. After simply repeating the rules of the game, he announced, "The battle begins." As soon as the referee's voice fell, Eminem and the students in the gymnasium released their starting points at the same time. When Armu saw a touch of green, he also understood why this kid was so confident. It was a flying mantis. Among the unevolved Pokémon, the flying mantis has a very high race value, up to 500 points. Therefore, in low-level battles, the flying mantis has an obvious advantage. In combat power, Coconut egg tree. Ha ha ha. Although the race value is higher than that of the flying mantis, you are too careless. How dare you use the grass type Pokémon to challenge the flying type gym? I didn't expect my treasure coming. There will be insect attributes, right? That's right. The flying mantis is the same as the butterfly, both of which have the attributes of worm plus flight. Amen. Give him a shot later. Chapter 54. Gianttian City Official Gymnasium. On site 103, I saw the four legs of the flying mantis waving like two big knives, slashing at the coconut egg tree again and again. However, the coconut egg tree was also stepping backwards at this time, while using telekinetic power to block the approach of the flying mantis. Between advancing and retreating, the coconut egg tree was driven to the edge of the field. At this moment, the little trainer seized the opportunity and said, "Flying mantis, use continuous / coconut egg tree, don't let it connect." Eminem reminded directly. The insect type physical attack skill, continuous / is not very powerful initially, only 40 points. However, as the number of hits increases, the power of consecutive / will also double, and the second consecutive / can reach 80, and the third consecutive / can reach 160, but as long as there is a miss, the power will be reset. However, this is not something you can dodge. If you want to dodge, it is said that some trainers have special abilities. As long as they shout dodge quickly, the Pokémon will get a resonance in power, and it can really speed up suddenly. But Eminem, apparently there is no such ability. With the knife of the flying mantis slashing over the coconut egg tree that was forced into a corner, was left with a green scar on its body. If you are hit by continuous / next time, the scars left this time will also reappear, causing even greater damage. The three silly faces of coconut egg tree also bared their teeth. Although the first hit only had 40 power, but grass plus superpower is a double weak worm, and this is the main skill of the flying mantis. Fortunately, the coconut egg tree's racial value is higher than that of the flying mantis, and its level is 7 or 8 levels higher, so the damage can still be eaten. That's it. Continue. The trainer of the small gymnasium seemed to be in good condition. The skill preparation speed of the flying mantis is much faster than that of the coconut egg tree. In this world, the importance of the speed racial value has been raised a lot. In the game, it is nothing more than a question of who moves first. Recruited. If Eminem and the opponent switch positions, at this time, they will definitely not use consecutive / to attack continuously, but will choose the tactic of Naughty Thunderbolt vs Death's Coffin. On the one hand, it is for the sake of being conservative, to minimize the possibility of the opponent's counterattack. On the other hand, continuous / is not an easy skill to control, but Eminem can also understand why the other party chooses this way. Continuous / is probably the only insect type attack skill that this flying mantis knows. Flying mantis, the second stage / solve it. The little trainer was already impassioned. In fact, coconut egg tree also prepared his skills at this time, but he held back and waited for him to greet. Just when the flying mantis exerted its strength again, and the dark green insect power flashed on the two arms of the knife, the three faces of the coconut egg tree, who seemed not to be smart, smiled more and more badly. The last / the coconut egg tree did not dodge. In terms of ability, it was very difficult to dodge, but what Eminem really said at the time was don't let it link. Obviously, the coconut tree, which often communicates with Eminem, has already understood Eminem's meaning. At the moment before, coconut egg tree didn't do its best to hide, or even use all its strength to interfere with telekinetic power. The purpose is to prevent it from connecting. This time, the coconut tree suddenly exerted all its power, and by surprise, it directly caused the flying mantis, which was not on guard and was rushing to twist its waist, not only failed to attack the coconut the egg tree, instead, fell down by itself, and the moment it lost its balance, a dark gray energy mass suddenly condensed in front of the three bad smiling faces of the coconut tree. With a burst of primitive power and vigorous rock type power, it slammed into the worm plus flying mantis with great force. Be careful. The flying mantis who was already out of balance, naturally couldn't dodge it in time, and fell to the ground directly, slid out of the ground, went out of bounds and hit the wall. Generally speaking, if you go out of bounds during a battle, you just need to return within the countdown, and you won't be judged as a loser. But Flying Mantis lost consciousness right now. It is also a double restraint, but the Flying Mantis is not as resistant to beating as the coconut egg tree, not to mention that this one's level is lower than that of our men, so it was taken away directly. Flying Mantis has lost its combat power. The gymnasium, please send out the next Pokémon. The referee on the side urged. The students in the small gymnasium were still too young, so they panicked at this moment and hurriedly retracted the Flying Mantis and then hurriedly released an owl that is the evolution of Cuckoo. The race value is 452 and the level is not as good as the Flying Mantis just now, so it should have just evolved. The only thing that can make Eminem care is that the owl has a probability of having the sleepless feature, so you can't use hypnosis powder, although this owl had already mastered air slash, which was a threat to the coconut egg tree. Its hard power was too weak, and it was quickly taken away with one shot. Eminem directly completed a string of 2 under the eyes of the trainer of the small gymnasium. Don't bully the young and poor. Eminem received the badge of Giantron City, which was also his second badge, and also declined the promotion of the special badge box when Armu came out. Zyarksha had already gone to other battlefields. It didn't take long before they came out, and then the two of them took square steps together and left the official gymnasium in Giantron City. Although there are only 2 badges, they still have the momentum of 8 badges. The 2 first returned to the Pokémon Center to restore the status of the Pokémon they had just fought. Let's go to the high-rise block in a while. I saw a dessert shop on the internet. Before visiting the garden, I can buy cakes there as gifts. Zyarksha suggested. Then you can drop by and buy a copy for me. I need to call Grandma Leixi and Sister Kingmui first. Let's go visit the garden together at 4 o'clock. Amu asked. Seeing that Zyarksha agreed to come down, Amu went back to the room first. Although it was only the second badge, Amu still wanted to call to announce the good news. Grandma Leixi still complained, "It took me so long to get the second badge. I must have no talent." But Eminem, who was used to it, just passed the test and asked 2 questions about pharmacists. Sure enough, when Grandma Leixi found out that Amu hadn't given up her pharmacist studies, her complexion eased a lot. After answering Amu's doubts, she just satirized for 15 minutes, then stopped and replaced her with Miss Kingmui. I can talk more with Sister Kingmui. Eminem told her interesting stories about divers. In this regard, Miss Kingmui also feels that it is so lively outside, and you can't meet these things in small towns. Of course, generally speaking, if you don't meet Conan, you can't meet these things in other places. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelos. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 55 Invitation. So, the prisoner is you. Under the testimony of sleeping Kagoro, the patient who pretended to be lame on one leg pleaded guilty on the ground in an OTR posture. Amu and Zyarksha had just brought the cake to the hospital and saw this scene in the lobby on the first floor. At this time, there were still many junchas around, and after asking a little bit, Amu knew that there was a serious homicide in the hospital just now. But the good news is that the case is now closed. Seeing that Kagoro was almost snoring in his sleep, Eminem was suddenly curious what would happen if he gave Kagoro a piece of fruit in advance. Of course, it's just thinking about it in my heart, and it doesn't really matter after all. Kagoro is not a Pokémon, and the effect of the tree fruit is not so good. Even if it is a Pokémon, if you want to delay the dehypnosis effect of zero fruit, you must make a zero fruit potion and eat it in advance. Soon the prisoner was taken away, and Kagoro woke up in good time, facing everyone's compliments. Kagoro accepted all the orders. I don't see him being more confused. Probably because he has accepted that he has a second personality. Xyadolin was on the side. Unable to bear her father's appearance, she quietly pulled Conan away from the encirclement of reporters swarming in, just in time to see Amu and Zyraksha. Zyraksha, Amu. You are also here to visit Yuanzi, right? Zyadolin hurriedly greeted the two of them. Yeah, you guys are. Zyraksha looked at the busy registration hall suspiciously. Amu looked at Conan suspiciously, making the latter raise his eyebrows at him. Even if Amu didn't speak, Conan could guess that he must be criticizing himself again in his heart. Just now there was a super bad guy who not only killed the doctor here, but also wanted to pretend that it was a ghost type Pokémon who killed him. Zyadolin said indignantly, Sister Zyadolin, there is no ghost type Pokémon in the world that can kill by itself. It must be done by humans. Ah. Uncle Kagoro said that. Hehe. Conan was afraid of revealing his secrets and quickly explained. This is probably the same as Conan in Conan World, who will never believe in curses and the like. Although it has been an alliance for 200 years, there are still many pots of wild Pokémon, especially ghost type Pokémon. So far, some people firmly believe that some ghost type Pokémon are transformed by unjust souls after death. Zyadolin was embarrassed when she heard the words. She also believed it before and changed the subject. Do you guys feel that the law and order seems to have deteriorated recently? Huh? Are you okay? Zyraksha's true feeling is that, except when she meets Yuanzi and the others, she is fine at other times. That's why sometimes I feel that the general environment is not good, so I still have to review whether I have destroyed the general environment. Eminem said while looking at Conan. At this time, everyone came to Yuanzi's ward. As the eldest lady of the Suzuki group, of course it was the most high-end private room. If Yuanzi didn't think it was unnecessary, he could actually find a private hospital for special services. Zyadolin, why are you so slow? Even Mew and Zyraksha have already arrived. Yuanzi complained. The appointment time with Zyrolan was much earlier than this. Sorry, when I was downstairs, I encountered another incident. Yuanzi immediately became excited when he heard the words. What incident? I'm going to check it out. To tell you the truth, I almost solved the case last time in my elder sister's villa. It's just that you are quick to talk, Mew. No, don't go down. It's over. My father just solved that case. Zyadolin quickly stopped Yuanzi, who was about to get off the bed with one leg. Let's try this. I heard it's a newly opened store, which is very famous in Jianshan City. Zyraksha took out the cake she bought earlier. It seems that the evaluation of this restaurant is not based on reviews. Everyone said it was good after eating. Even, it's really delicious. Conan, do you like matcha flavor better? We can go again tomorrow. Zyadolin also liked it very much. Yeah. Conan looked cute. Amu always felt that this wave of Zyraksha was a little sorry for the owner of the shop, but she didn't mean to follow her to have a look. After all, in the next few days, Amu will go to the battle club. Ah, you going to Nibi City in the future? Yuanzi specifically asked. Eminem and Zyraksha should be going, but Amu said that he will stay in Jianshan City for a while, and he will go just as Zyraksha was halfway through speaking. Yuanzi blushed and said, stay a little longer? In fact, I will recover soon. Huh? What? Zyraksha didn't hear clearly. She called the cake and muttered something. Ah. No. You just said to stay for a while. Yuanzi quickly covered up the past. Only Zyadolin, who seemed to have discovered something, looked at Yuanzi with some doubts. Zyraksha also looked at Amu when she heard the words, and Amu nodded and said, well, I will train a few more difficult skills in the future. At least wait until they are basically familiar with the skills before going on the road, because what I want to learn this time is a skill that Eminem has not mastered in any Pokémon, so you can only continue learning on the road after you are basically familiar with the skills. Otherwise you will not be able to train on the road. Yuanzi couldn't help heaving a sigh of relief when he heard the words, and at the same time felt a little uncomfortable, and then quickly changed the topic by himself. You all need to go to Nibi City from now on. May 5th. May 5th. Remember to come to Nibi City. May 5th. Is there something? Amu saw Yuanzi emphatically, as if there was something wrong. On May 5th, my uncle will hold an exhibition at the Fossil Museum in Nabi City. There will be an exhibition of the Mega Gyarados stone, and I will treat you well then. Yuanzi sent out a special invitation. Gyarados' Mega Stone. Eminem was taken aback when he heard this. What is there to show about that thing? Mega Stone, which is a special evolution stone used to assist Pokémon Mega Evolution. Its formation principle and function principle are still under research. Mega Evolution itself is a kind of evolution method that has been lost in a long history and has only been rejuvenated in recent years. As for the number of trainers who have mastered the Mega Evolution, the number is indeed not that many. It is estimated that the number is about the same as the number of king level trainers. Not only the limitation of the Mega Stone, but more importantly, if you want Mega Evolution, not only must the Pokémon reach a certain level of growth, but it is also said that the bond between the trainer and the Pokémon must reach a certain level before it can be triggered. Most of the king level trainers can do it, but some of the kings can't do it, and there are also a few trainers who are not kings but can evolve Pokémon Mega. Unlike in the game, there is no limit to the number of Mega Evolutions in the game, but it is true that when Mega evolves, the trainer's physical or mental strength is also under certain pressure. There are many examples of Mega Evolution 2 or 3 times in one battle or long Mega Evolution, which cause the trainer to faint midway. Generally, trainers who can Mega evolve will not have too many Mega Evolution stones, and most of them only have one Mega Evolution stone. Rare is indeed rare, but Eminem doesn't think that thing has any artistic value that can be exhibited. It's not a Mega Evolution stone, it's a Mega Rough stone. It's true that it can be processed into a Mega Evolution stone, but it also has a certain collection value, Sonoko said, and found a picture for Eminem in the illustrated book. I saw a transparent spar with a diameter of more than 10 centimeters carved into the image of a Tyrannosaurus entangled and roaring towards the sky. If you look carefully, there is a 3-dimensional rotating symbol interlaced with blue and red. Chapter 56, The Magician in the Moonlight. Seeing the pictures in Yuan's illustration book, Eminem couldn't help sighing in his heart. Rich people really know how to play. Indeed, the original stone of the Mega Evolution stone is very beautiful. After carving, it can be used as the top gem, and this Wrath of the Gyarados is the best among them. Not only is it huge, but it also looks like an angry Tyrannosaurus after simple carving. If you want to process it into a Mega Evolution stone, relatively speaking, it is actually much simpler than carving it. You just need to cut out the spiral-shaped 3-dimensional rune inside, and the surrounding sphere with a diameter of about 5 or 6 centimeters, and then can be given to Pokémon. Even if it is not processed, it can actually be used, but it is convenient to carry. After processing. Mega Evolution stones will also resonate with the genetic points of Pokémon's inspired props, that is, they will occupy the position of props or tree fruit potions at this time. The trainer should also carry the keystone that can resonate with it. If the resonance is successfully triggered, the Pokémon can undergo Mega Evolution during the battle. As long as the trainer carries a universal keystone, it can theoretically resonate with all Mega Evolution stones, but each Pokémon needs its own exclusive Mega Evolution stone, and even some Pokémon have more than one Mega Evolution stone. Corresponds to different Mega Evolution forms. Although the value of Mega Evolution stones is high, some well-crafted Mega Rough stones are also worth a lot, even much more than simple Mega Evolution stones. After all, the former has only practical value, while the latter has the so-called artistic value artificially endowed. However, neither Eminem nor Zyaksha are obviously people who are very good at appreciating art. Although this Gyarados Wrath is said to be worth 10 times the Mega Evolution Stone of Gyarados, if there is a choice, the two be sure to choose the Mega Evolution Stone that you can use. Seeing the fake, so powerful expressions of Mew and Zyaksha, Sonoko also guessed what they were thinking, so he added, "This is not simply a matter of Wrath of the Gyarados, but it is very likely that we will see the legendary Master Kid at that time." Master Kid. Eminem was speechless with sweat dripping down his head. Well, this kid is definitely not the one with the broken hand, but the K-Tau kid known as the magician in the moonlight. I also want to know that, since it is Strange Thief, then this is naturally a fake name. And his most famous deed is hunting gems everywhere. At this time, Yuanzi was afraid that Amu and Zylaksha would not know this person, so he actively introduced him. Kid will steal gems everywhere, including but not limited to megastones, Pokémon fossils, Pokémon derived materials, and various other gems. However, after the theft, most of the time, the stolen goods will be returned within a few days, although there are a small number of cases where they were not returned. There are also rumors in the market that those gems were truly returned to their original owners, so they were not returned to the false owners who came from the wrong place. And to be fair, its approach is actually very different from stealing, because he often tells the time to do it in advance, and then with wonderful operations again and again, he miraculously takes away the gems he wants from the layers of security. It is also this kind of appreciation, coupled with his style of thieves, that makes him have many admirers among the people, especially young women. And Amu noticed that Sunoko's cognition at this time was still at the level of Master Kid should be a handsome middle-aged man. Obviously he hadn't really had close contact with him. Some people say that he has the strength of a heavenly king, which is why he can repeatedly take away gems from the heavily guarded guards. Some people say that he is just opportunistic and uses some tricks, so no one has ever seen him. Who is he really fighting? So, he is going to steal your gems, right? Zylaksha also looked at Yuanzi speechlessly, who knew all about Kid's deeds. Well, Uncle Jirokichi is also a child with a temper. Because Kid has grabbed his headlines several times, he is often invited to perform on purpose. Sunoko said straightforwardly, and then said seductively, how about it? You can come to the last good location, appreciate the heroic posture of Lord Kid, whether it is Gyarados Wrath or Master Kid's heroic appearance, it is obviously not within the scope that Eminem and Zylaksha can appreciate. But seeing Yuanzi's warm invitation, both of them pretended to be curious and agreed. May 5th, well, as long as there are no accidents on the way, we will definitely arrive. Eminem agreed. Because Eminem is planning to go to Eugene Mountain in mid-May, the journey will be accelerated, and he should have arrived in Nabi City on May 5th. But before going on the road, Eminem still has two things to do. One is to train his skills in the battle club, the other is to go to an armored rhinoceros ranch in the north of Jianshan City on the road. Armored rhino, also known as one-horned rhino, is a rock plus ground dual type Pokémon, and it is one of the mainstream riding Pokémon. After obtaining 2 badges, you can obtain a Pokémon rider license. Even Zylaksha, the water system trainer, is going to the armored rhinoceros ranch, get a rider's certificate, and try to choose an armored rhinoceros to take away, so that it will be convenient for traveling in the wild in the future. Otherwise, by walking alone, some places far away from the main road cannot be reached at all. Soon it was time for dinner, and Amu and Zylaksha didn't stay long, especially rejecting Yuanzi's request to escape the sick meal and to escape out for dinner together. Huh? Do you have an appointment? Zylaksha was at the entrance of the hospital, looking at Amu suspiciously. Just now he actually said that he would not go back to the Pokémon Center for free buffet. The layout of Jianshan City is unreasonable. I'll just go to the battle club and deal with it. Amu complained. The battle club and Jianshan City is not in the same area as the Pokémon Center at all, and it would be too time consuming to toss on both sides. You're going to start training tonight. You're really working hard. Zylaksha first sighed, then said unconvincingly after a pause, if that's the case, then I'll go too. After eating and coming to the battle club, Eminem first rented 3 skill machines. This thing is not a matter of a disc, but after being connected and activated in the training room, it will form a 3-dimensional image and the most important energy simulation point. After thinking about it, I rented a 4th one. Carrying 4 skill machines, Amu and Zylaksha separated, and then they had to train separately. Amu's 4 skill machines are exactly the skills selected for Coconut Egg Tree, Froggrass, Nidorino, and Naughty Thunderbolt. Although I don't know if Naughty Layden will listen to my training, but I still have to try this. Training is a test for us. Amen. You can learn this. Tricking space. Lion. You can learn this. Sunny day. Nido. This. Frozen beam. Can only be learned by you. Chapter 57. A new round of learning. Eminem has long been paying attention to the problem that coconut egg tree's speed is not fast enough, but he didn't focus on training the speed of skill preparation. The racial value of just 55 points, no matter how much it can be improved, it is limited and not worthwhile. Point not to mention the armored rhinoceros who made up his mind after Eminem. Armored rhino is a typical Pokémon with completely different movement, speed and skill preparation. Speed. An armored rhino is not slow to run, but not flexible enough, otherwise it would not be used as a mainstream riding Pokémon. However, its speed race value is only 25. The speed of skill preparation is extremely slow, even if it evolves into a rhinoceros or a super armored rhinoceros. The speed is only 40 points for this kind of Pokémon. Training the speed of skill preparation is not very effective. It is better to concentrate on training non-skill combat skills. If you really want to compete in skills, only magic space can save it. In Pokémon battles, the speed of skill accumulation is the result of the interaction between the enemy, and the effect of magic space is to reverse this interaction in the space point when trick space is activated in the game. The order of actions is directly reversed to the slow first move point in this real Pokémon world. Trick space does not have such a strong effect as exchange speed, but it can also narrow the gap between fast and slow point. Under trick space, the relatively faster Pokémon will be slowed down more, and the slower the speed of the Pokémon, the more the skill preparation speed will increase. That is, the speed gap will be narrowed. If used well, it can make up for the weakness of slow Pokémon. Even in this world, it is the core skill of the turtle speed team. Point however, it is also very difficult to learn. Generally, Pokémon with superpowers can only be learned. Point, and except for the smart gorilla, which can be learned naturally as it grows, everything else can only be learned the day after tomorrow. Note 1. Thinking of this, Armu released the variety monster again. Coffin, the trick space. Here, you can learn it even in the state of death. Coffin, you can try. After the variety transforms, you have to learn the skills by yourself, and the death coffin can also learn trick space. Seeing Ditto's in different attitude, Armu added, if you knew magic space before, you wouldn't be defeated by Boom so easily. Boom didn't suffer any injuries at that time. For this kind of superficial aggressive general, Ditto just turned his two bean eyes and looked at Eminem with a piercing look. Point Emu didn't talk to it too much. There's no rush now, and Ditto doesn't seem to care, but it's actually quietly watching the skill display here. Point not only the three-dimensional image, but after Amu connected the skill machine, he even found that similar energy fluctuations of the super energy system can be simulated here. Although there is no actual effect, but from the perspective of learning skills, it has a guiding effect. Point there are a total of 6 skill machine interfaces in the training room, which can theoretically be used by 6 Pokémon together. However, there are generally no trainers who do this. The more common training method is that when Pokémon is training skills, the trainer himself is also refueling or even coaching. Point Eminem is very serious as a trainer, but when training Pokémon, he is a relatively stalking type. This is also in line with the ability and personality of the beast trainer. Point the skill that Froggrass needs to learn at this time is the weather type. Sunny day. It is also difficult to learn. Although it cannot actually change the weather, it can locally change the surrounding environment. Point for example, big sunny day. After successfully activated, the surrounding sunlight energy will become more intense. Not only the power of fire type skills is enhanced, and water type skills are weakened, but also some grass type skills that need to accumulate solar energy can be accelerated. And more importantly, can stimulate some characteristics. Point the garlic that drive Oki prepared for Eminem is a very rare frog seed with the characteristic of chlorophyll. The effect in the game is that the speed doubles under sunny days, but in this world, when the sun is particularly strong, the preparation speed of skills will be greatly increased. Point, as long as the sunny day is driven, the speed of a lion, who is not outstanding, will become a strong point in speed, and the characteristic of our men. Although it is not chlorophyll, but it is also harvest that will also be strengthened by sunny days. This is the main reason why it can be used as a pharmacist's assistant before point in this world. Pokémon with the harvest characteristic can absorb the energy of the sun for a period of time after taking the berry potion, allowing the power of the berry that has already taken effect to regenerate in the body. In normal times, regeneration requires 2 skill preparations, but when the sun is strong, the required time will be halved. It is equivalent to absorbing the energy of sunlight, so that the active ingredients in the fruit potion are continuously regenerated and effective repeatedly. Our lion was also entrusted by Eminem with the responsibility of learning Big Sunny Day as the engine of Sunny Day tactics. Once the skill machine of Sunny Day is connected, it can immediately create a small area with strong sunlight. In fact, it is somewhat similar to the learning environment of the grass type skills before, so that Froggrass can feel this move more intuitively. As for Nidorino, he is basically familiar with 100,000 volts now, and the second special attack skill that Eminem prepared for it is Frozen Beam. One is that the current team does not have ice type skill output. If Nidorino can learn Frozen Beam, it is equivalent to making up for the damage. Secondly, before Nidorino evolved, only 100,000 volts, Frozen Beam, and Power of the Earth could be learned, and it was worth learning. Can be stimulated. Note 2. After arranging the 4 of them, Eminem released the Naughty Mind Bomb. Although Boom has reached level 50 and has never fully recognized Eminem, he has been subtly impressed by Eminem. Especially after the last battle with the coffin, the Naughty Thunder Bomb has no command over Eminem. Too much resistance. Boom. Your previous skills were all learned when you grew up with other Naughty Thunderbolts, right? Although they are all very strong, there is still a lack of coordination. To some extent, Boom's situation is similar to that of the Ibrahimovic of Badger. There are also many naughty Minecraft from ancient times at Dr. Jumu's place. The ball has a certain connection point in this case. Even if Jumu didn't train specially, these naughty mind bombs would naturally learn from their kind. This is Volt Exchange, which can be used to evacuate the battlefield when fighting alone, and more importantly, in a game that requires coordination, it can be used to change players without causing the situation to become unbalanced. Volt Exchange. The effect in the game is that you can change people after using it. This trick itself also has 70 power. Compared to directly replacing Pokémon, it does not lose too much rhythm point in this world. The principle of Volt Exchange is that while the energy of its own electric system is sufficient to launch attacks, it will also be in a state of free space. And it can return to the Elf Ball or Game Ball, and it can quickly go far away in the wild. Go, get out of the fight. Naughty Layden hesitated for a moment, then looked at the display of the skill machine, and started learning on his own. As for Eminem, he first wrote down the previous battle diary, and then rarely read the trainer's book, nor did he read pharmacy, but remembered the Pokémon Rider Theory examination. Note 1. In terms of game settings, there are other Pokémon that can also learn tricking space with level up, but except for Polygon Z and Wisdom Orangutan, they are all mythical beasts. In terms of the setting of this book, human beings don't understand the growth of mythical beasts, and Polygonal Beast Z is still in the experimental stage, so here it is only smart wielding orangutans, not because the author made a mistake. Note 2. Skills that require memory to learn are also within the category that Beast Tamer can directly stimulate. Dang. Recommend a new Pokémon book, The Carp King Spirit Simulator. I, who became the Carp King, lead the Gyarados to greatness again. Integrated worldview, parallel world plus animation. Chapter 58. The trainer badge on the chest is more shiny. Alliance 200, April 22nd. Giantian City vs. Club. When riding Pokémon, whether in the suburbs or in urban areas, you must wear a safety helmet. When riding Pokémon, do not wear strong perfume or carry items that will make Pokémon sensitive. Eminem. was carrying his back, and suddenly the alarm clock rang, only to realize that it was already lunchtime. This is already the third day of Eminem's skills training in Giantron City. While lamenting how time flies, Eminem took out the prepared Pokémon food. They are basically made from tree fruit, only the food of Bulgaria and Nidorino are added with the meat of ordinary animals, because it is somewhat similar to mixing potions. It has little to do with cooking, so Eminem is very good at making Pokémon food. Of course, it's limited to the staple food. As for the Pokémon desserts, that can make the Pokémon happy, beautiful, and even increase the bond value, Eminem doesn't know anything about it, and only breeders or coordinators will learn those. When Eminem placed a plate of paste-like special food for Ditto in front of Ditto, he saw it squirm for a while, and instantly turned into a death coffin, and then stared straight at it with a pair of bean eyes. As if to say, you actually want to eat this for the death coffin. However, Eminem was not surprised. At this time, his movements were smooth, and he took out another can of grey smoke-like things from the backpack beside him. This is the general purpose of the ready-made ghost-type Pokémon that Eminem bought. Food. Most ghost Pokémon can eat this. Most of the ghost-type Pokémon's eating habits are more complicated, like the death coffin. They can even eat gold. Amu is not good at this kind of food, and it is impossible to prepare gold extravagantly, so he bought ready-made general food. The variety froze when he saw this, and then turned back to the variety, wriggling and covering it with a mass of mushy stuff. And when he wriggled away, it was already a CD. Seeing this, Eminem grinned heartily, then went over and touched Dittoman's head. Of course, Ditto does not have a head. In order to avoid Eminem's hand, he has already suffocated a piece along with his movements, but since there is no fierce resistance, he will still be touched by Eminem. Don't waste food. Amu pushed the food of the ghost-type Pokémon over. Variety is reluctant, but in the end it becomes a death coffin, and eats the general food of ghost-type Pokémon. After the Pokémon were finished eating, Eminem took them back to the Pokéball, and prepared to finish his lunch. The restaurant of the Battle Club is only open to gold card members, and the silver card cafeteria only has desserts, which are for trainers to communicate with. If it weren't for the fact that they don't accept foreigners or silver card members, Eminem would really like to solve it in the Battle Club, but just for the buffet, it would be too uneconomical to upgrade to a gold card. Zyraksha came out first, and the two made an appointment to have lunch together. Because the training room they chose was not on the same floor, they made an appointment to meet outside the gate. This way. Zyraksha greeted. Amu was looking over and suddenly felt that someone was staring at her. After hearing Zyraksha's voice, I saw a young man who seemed to be 1 or 2 years younger than Eminem. He looked at himself and asked in a somewhat repulsive tone, "Eminem, are you a pharmacist?" Hearing this, Eminem took a closer look at him. Not uncommon purple short sleeves, ordinary trousers and hiking boots on his lower body. Only the short spiked hairstyle was more conspicuous. Although the temperament is undoubtedly straight, there is a pendant hanging around the neck, and only a thin chain is exposed at the neckline. You are. Emma looked at him suspiciously. If you can tell you are a pharmacist just by saying M, it shouldn't be many, right? After all, Eminem hadn't passed the expert level examination yet, and passed the first level pharmacist examination at the age of 18. Although it was considered news, it was not as thick as a finger in the newspaper, so no one would remember it. It really is you. I'm Zyomeo, the man who will become a Pokémon master. Zyomeo looked a little provocative. So, that's the case, then congratulations, Eminem said indifferently, and without sincerity. As soon as he heard Zyromeo's name, Eminem understood. Isn't this the grandson of Dr. Oki? This grandson probably heard about Amu from Dr. Omu, and according to Dr. Omu, Amu is probably other people's child. As we all know, children from other people's family usually has no motivating effect, especially for Zyromeo, who has always been proud, so naturally he is against Eminem because of this. But at this moment, Zyromeo seemed to have punched an empty space, and his chest felt tight. Ah. You also fighting against the club? Zyromeo adjusted his breathing, and then asked. Eminem shook his head and said, "No, it's just training skills. Heh, I'm already a LV7 opponent." Zyromeo said proudly, "Oh, it's amazing. If you upgrade to another level, you can get a silver card for free for 1 year. Eminem echoed calmly. Suddenly Armu remembered something and asked with interest, have you been to the fighting club in Giant City many times? That's right. This is where I rose to LV7. When Xiaomao was about to emphasize it again, Armu interrupted. Then you must know, where are the restaurants around you that taste better? Eat whatever you want, Xiaomao. I also officially became a trainer in March this year. How about we have a match? Xiaomao said directly. I'm just asking which restaurant around here tastes better, and you don't need to win the battle to tell me. Armu was shocked. I didn't say that. Xiaomao said angrily. You are really rude. Xiaoxia also stared at Xiaomao at this time and chimed in from the side. I forget about the battle. I'm training key skills recently. For the time being. Amu didn't want to interrupt their state. Oh, there are so many excuses. You will also go to Nibi City in the future, right? Then you will be in Nibi City. On the first day of next month, I will wait for you at the battle club in Nibi City. 4 against 4. Standard doubles rules. I hope you don't dare. Xiaomao made a forced decision. As Xiaomao said, he released a wind speed dog from the elf ball, then rode on it, and ran away on the road. Looks like he's already got his riding license. At this moment, a familiar voice came. What a coincidence. Thanks to your help in the case of the villa before. Do you still have lunch? I treat you. I saw Yumi was also passing by on a wind speed dog at this time, and she was still wearing a uniform, but she was obviously about to desert. Seeing this, Amu quickly pointed. Let's not talk about this. Just now there was a young man with a short thorn, who was riding a wind speed dog without a helmet, and went over there. What? These brats. Wait for me a moment. Yumi said, patted the wind speed dog and said, stop chasing this way, following the smell of the same kind. Seeing Yumi-chan go away, Amu felt relieved. How could he watch Dr. Roki's grandson do such a dangerous thing as riding a Pokémon without a helmet? Chapter 59 Road Safety. Yumi originally wanted to treat Eminem to dinner at noon, but she bumped into someone riding a Pokémon without a helmet, so she chased after her. Because of some things, the time was delayed, so I came to invite Eminem at night. Don't worry about ordering. I'll take it today. Yumi said with a big air. But tone is very grand. But this kind of itami skewer tavern is obviously too early for Eminem. Xiaoxia even slipped away when she found out the direction she was leading the way. The self-help at the Pokémon Center is more delicious. Boss, I'm still the same. I'll give this kid a glass of Mamu milk beer first. Yumi greeted the boss skillfully. Received. The boss with a towel tied on his head responded. Then Yumi explained to Amu in a low voice, Mamu milk beer has no alcohol. It is a drink made from Mumu's fresh milk. You can drink it at ease. Hahaha. Then, I'll order another bunch of this, and this. Amu ordered several, after looking at the menu. As for Yumi herself, obviously she seems to come here often. The boss first gave her a draft beer. At this time, Yumi was already wearing her usual skirt, and regardless of her image, she drank a big cup first. One more. Hey, Miss Yumi, don't drink in such a hurry. The boss tried to persuade him, but he gave another stab to his body. Honestly, after all, he also understands that this amount of wine is not enough for Yumi. I guess there won't be many chances in the future. Hiccup. Yumi was slightly drunk. Her face flushed. It hasn't been long since Miss Yumi came to Giant City, right? You're going to be transferred again. If you can't say it, don't say it. The tavern owner is also worried that Yumi will tell some confidential things under the influence of alcohol. You also specially reminded, yeah. Thanks to this, Yumi said, hammering on the shoulder of Emu beside her, because of the previous villa case. Eminem immediately responded. It's not like he was promoted just because he issued a ticket to Xiaomao, right? Half. And, do you know what I'm going to do at noon? Yumi asked mysteriously, bringing her face closer. Huh? Didn't you chase the one who didn't wear a helmet? Eminem was also very surprised. Is this still a big case? I was chasing after him, but in the end, I happened to hold him down in front of a cake shop. Cake. shop, Eminem direct element perception point. Sure enough, Yumi continued to say, I just issued a ticket to him, and suddenly I heard. Then, Yumi told Eminem vividly how she encountered the cake shop poisoning case by chance, and with her ingenuity and a little help from an unimportant elementary school student, she solved the case on the spot and captured the criminal. Point. The law and order in the Pokémon world is actually pretty good, at least in general. Therefore, Yumi, who cracked 2 vicious injury cases in a row, was directly promoted to the police department. And, let me tell you quietly, because my aunt told me that it is faster to get promoted if I'm transferred frequently, so I was transferred to Nubby City. Ha ha ha. Yumi whispered and patted Eminem on the shoulder. Point. Slim Shady, as for Yumi's aunt, why can you mobilize her when you say mobilize? Even though Yumi didn't say which aunt she was, she knew from the title that she must be an old Junsha from the Junsha clan. In the Junsha system, the Junsha clan has a great say. Point. After all, Giantian City is only a small city, and it is not comparable to the 6 major cities in Kanto. Yumi suddenly behaved as if she could create a talent, and she would naturally be cultivated by her elders. Point. In addition, transfer to Nibi City. Amu grinned, then raised his glass and touched her and said, I have a hunch that you will definitely have a successful official career. You can still talk. When you come to Nibi City later, you can report my name if you have anything to do. Ha ha ha. Yumi said, patting Eminem on the shoulder. By the way, Miss Yumi, can I ask you about Junsha's power? Amu took the opportunity to ask. Point. However, Yumi was stunned when she heard the words, but she smiled and said, PFFT, the power of Junsha? That can't be learned. No. What I mean is, there is actually a special communication ability, although it is not a kind of power. Amu feels that there should be similarities in the application skills, and the Junsha clan has been studying this aspect for a long time, 4 generations at the beginning. Yumi seemed unwilling to talk about business while drinking, but it didn't take long before she turned into a king who was bragging about her power with Eminem while drinking. In the end, Eminem didn't remember how many cups Yumi drank in total, but she was undoubtedly drunk anyway. Point. Eminem can see that, although Yumi pretends to be fine, she is actually a little too nervous or too heavy by the successive serious injury cases in her heart, so she is extra indulgent today. Point. After all, normal times the law and order in the Pokémon world is still good. Seeing that it was very late and Yumi had already arrived, Eminem originally wanted to pay the bill first, but was told by the boss that Yumi had paid in advance. Miss Yumi, where do you live? Let me call a car for you. Amu looked at Yumi, who was not sober, and asked, no need. Junsha dormitory, not far away, not drunk. Yumi muttered a few words, of course, the last word, just listen to it. Point. Junsha's dormitory is indeed not far away, and as long as she can be helped back, there will be colleagues she knows nearby. Point. So Eminem helped her up first. Point. Originally, Eminem thought that with his own physical strength, holding his arm was enough, but as he walked, Yumi naturally put her on his shoulder, and there was already a faint snoring sound. Miss Yumi, Miss Yumi. Amu felt helpless upon seeing this. The moonlight shone on her light-colored dress, her flushed face, and her lips that looked extraordinarily glossy at this moment. Amu noticed this scene, and suddenly his eyes lit up. I was also dumbfounded. How could I just help him at this time? I saw Eminem reaching out to Yumi's waist. I took out the Pokeball box. The first Pokeball was released after pressing the switch. It really was a wind speed dog. Fortunately, Yumi's Pokeball is not locked, and other people can open it. Windspeed Dog was puzzled when he saw Eminem, and then he noticed Yumi, who was drunk, and also showed a helpless look. Then Amu lifted Yumi and put Yumi on the body of the Windspeed Dog, keeping her riding posture specially so that her head rested on the Windspeed Dog's neck to avoid accidental suffocation. Your name is Stab. You should know the way back to Miss Yumi's dormitory, right? Amu patted Feng's speed dog on the head, only to see it nodded and did not act, because Amu was a stranger unfriendly. As expected of Junsha's wind speed dog, he is well trained. Afterwards, Eminem accompanied the wind speed dog and sent Yumi to the Junsha dormitory on foot. After all, Yumi was already drunk. At this time, the wind speed dog started to run a little bit, which is a drunk driving Pokémon point, but Eminem is walking on the side. If he walks slowly, he is just leading the Pokémon on a walk, and the Pokémon is carrying people. Eminem, who has memorized the Pokémon riding regulations recently, knows this very well. In the past few days, they are already familiar with the skills, and Eminem has almost memorized the laws and regulations. They are going to set off tomorrow. First, they will go to the Armored Rhinoceros Ranch in the Northern Valley. Continue to Nibi City, the northernmost city in West Kanto. Chapter 60 Armored Rhino Ranch. Union 200, April 26. Amu and Zylaksha have left Jianshan City for 2 days, and finally came to the Iron Armored Rhino Ranch in the north of Jianshan City. Not only are there a large number of ironclad rhinos bred here for purchase, but you can also obtain a riding certificate for ironclad rhinos. The entire ranch is in a valley, with entrances and exits and inspection points at both ends. Seeing Amu and Zylaksha coming in, a staff member immediately stepped forward and asked, "Is this the first time for you two to come to the Armored Rhino Ranch? Do you need guidance?" "Well, it's my first time here, and I hope to find a suitable armored rhino." Eminem replied, "Have you had any riding licenses for other Pokémon before?" The staff continued to ask about the situation. "No," Amu said, and looked at Zylaksha, who asked one more question. "I have a surfing license." It has nothing to do with this." The staff laughed. Different riding Pokémon theoretically require different documents, a total of more than 40 kinds. Other Pokémon are not allowed to go on the city driveway. However, as long as you pass the riding certificate, you only need to test the unique subjects of different riding Pokémon. Of course, this only refers to running on the roads of the city. If you are out in the wild, or strolling on the sidewalk, you don't need a riding permit. When I saw Eminem and Zylaksha, I happily paid the entrance fee and the deposit for the purchase of the armored rhinoceros, and the staff enthusiastically guided them. Crossing in from the entrance hall, after entering the valley, you can see a long and narrow grassland. It is said to be a pasture, but it is more like an armored rhinoceros reserve. The difference from pure nature is that a high density of armored rhinoceros is stocked in. For this reason, grass and seeds are put in every day, and there will be grass type Pokémon on a regular basis to promote pasture growth. In addition to daily inspections, avoid some harmful and competitive Pokémon that are harmful to the iron rhino, and the eggs that are bred at the same time will be properly hatched. Other than that, it won't interfere too much with the armored rhinos here. The armored rhinos bred in this way are not only gentler, but also not frightening. If you encounter a group of armored rhinos in the real wild, the advice for new trainers is not to approach them. If it is alone, it is not dangerous, as long as you avoid the direction where it is rushing. But once the group is shocked, even humans in the Pokémon world are prone to accidents, and the armored rhinos here are used to being ridden and subdued, so they won't easily startle the crowd. Of course, if you want to tame the armored rhinoceros here, you also need some fate, and it is not impossible to return empty-handed. The armored rhinoceros here are easier to tame, but it is also forbidden to tame them in battle. They can only be tamed by communicating with each other or riding tame. That's why what was charged before was only a deposit if you return it empty-handed. The deposit is refundable. The staff took Amu and Zylaksha to put on the armor, took the map, and introduced it to Amu and Zylaksha. After the area distribution in the valley, they asked one more question. "Do you need further guidance?" "Only 30,000 a day." "No, we want to see how our fate is." Eminem rejected other projects that cost money. "Okay, but remember, if it's not an emergency, you can't release your Pokémon to attack the Iron Rhino. Also, remember that the Iron Rhino with the red ribbon already has a knight, so you don't have to try it." The staff emphasized again. At this time, Amu and Zylaksha had already changed their protective gear, that is, helmets and joint protectors, to prevent falls and bruises. Although people in this world resist creation, the necessary protection is still there. "Let's split up and see you at the exit at night," Zylaksha said directly. The two had discussed the matter of the armored rhinoceros before, and Zylaksha just wanted to find a normal armored rhinoceros mount. That is, the kind that is good at endurance and running, and has a docile personality point, and Eminem hopes to find a head with high individual value and high physical attack, because Zyarksha just wants a mount, and she doesn't usually train it too much, while Armu is ready. And if she has a suitable armored rhinoceros, she will join her main team point. After all, Iron Rhinoceros and its evolutionary type have the attributes of ground plus rock, which is a good match with Eminem, and the armored rhinoceros and its evolutionary type's attributes are also suitable for battle. Although the speed in the race value is low, it's a bit too much, but it can be combined with the coconut egg tree, or the ditto, that turns into the coffin of death, to perform trick-space tactics. Although the evolved armored Tyrannosaurus is no longer suitable for riding, because its body has become a Tyrannosaur with 2 feet on the ground, but the iron armored rhinoceros will evolve into iron armored Tyrannosaurus, that is, drilled rhinoceros. It needs a growth rate of 42, and it can still be used as Eminem's mount for a long time, which is not contradictory. Point on the one hand, since the armored rhinoceros must be subdued, the two of them will influence each other if they are together. On the other hand, the area of the valley pasture is not small, and it is also divided into regions, and from the habits, we can roughly judge the proficiency of wild Pokémon category. Point Amu wanted an armored rhinoceros with a relatively high physical attack, so he was going to Mogio Giant Rock. Zyarksha only wanted an ordinary armored rhinoceros with good endurance and docileness, and went directly to the most popular central lake point. As soon as Zyarksha came to the lake, she saw several people choosing or trying to ride and tame the armored rhinoceros. She felt that there are so many people and encouraged herself, and when Eminem came to grinding rock, he didn't see anyone else. Point the two were still in a video call. At this time there was a signal in the valley, because the armored rhino was mainly being cultivated, so it was good to adjust the signal to a frequency band that would not be affected by the armored rhino. Point after all, there is still a certain degree of danger in riding and subduing, and it also needs to meet the need for help. Point on Zyarksha's side, the armored rhinoceros drank water and basked in the sun. They looked very harmonious. Only when a trainer tried to ride up from behind did they start to shake violently, and at first glance, a third has ribbons. Point, and on Eminem's side, a group of armored rhinos that look very irritable are grinding their horns on the rocks in 2s and 3s, and there are even some who are too eager to fight and are wrestling with each other. Looking around, it seems that there is no ribbon. It feels like our painting style is completely different. You must take the illustration book and keep up with the communication. In a while, if something happens, I can help you. Zyarksha saw the situation on Amu's side and couldn't help but feel embarrassed. Grin. Point doing boom boom while speaking. Another round of wrestling was won and lost. The loser was overwhelmed by the pressure, retreated again and again, and finally fell down panting. Horn. The armored rhinoceros raised its front hooves and stomped its feet. Point I saw this victorious armored rhinoceros with scars on its horn and a scar on its left eye. It looked aggressive. Horn, horn, horn. The victorious armored rhino still had a high desire to win and seemed to continue to provoke the surrounding armored rhino. Point seeing that they seemed to be the challenge mode, Eminem became more interested. Instead of picking them right away, he wanted to take the opportunity to see their performance. Point, but he was not idle and went forward to spray the wounded armored rhino first. It wasn't a serious injury at all. Point at first, the other party was very alert when they saw humans approaching, but Amu raised his hand and slowly approached, and then slowly took out the wound medicine and sprayed it on. The armored rhinoceros lying on the ground looked relieved. After such a short period of time in the open space where the wrestling was fought, the winner was decided again. Chapter 61. Are you addicted to vegetables? Horn. The armored rhinoceros with scarred horns and scarred eyes pushed away another of its kind. Point Eminem can basically be sure that this armored rhino must have a high physical attack. At this time, Eminem also went over to spray the armored rhinoceros that was just lying on the ground. The armored rhinoceros with scarred horns and scarred eyes was still excited at this time, looking left and right, with its front hoof still pawing the ground. as if it didn't accept any 1 point. But Eminem also noticed at this time that this armored rhinoceros with scarred horns and eyes is not the strongest here. The real big brother is sleeping on a huge rock next to it. This rock has no armor. Rhinos dare to sharpen their horns. If it weren't for the armored rhino with scarred horns and scarred eyes, every time after winning the challenge, it would look over at it. And indeed its size would be stronger than other armored rhinos, or even the armored rhino with scarred horns and scarred eyes if so. Eminem hasn't noticed this yet. In addition, while Eminem was healing his wounds, he also tried to communicate with these defeated armored rhinos. Sure enough, the horned and scarred-eyed armored rhino who has been winning and clamoring all the time is a stubble. In order to become the boss of Mojialoyan, he has challenged several times, so he looks so scarred. When he defeated his opponent for an unknown number of times, Eminem saw the armored rhinoceros with scarred horns and eyes shake his head and just threw his opponent on the Mojio rock, where the big brother was. Horn. The armored rhinoceros with scarred horns and scarred eyes looked at Mojialoyan with high spirits, and the big brother above was also alarmed at this time and opened his eyes slightly. Even without animal perception, Eminem can understand that the armored rhinoceros with scarred horns and scarred eyes is launching a challenge. On the other side, according to the steps, Zylaksha first approached slowly from behind, then suddenly jumped onto the back of the armored rhinoceros, and then was knocked so hard that her mind lost her mind. She couldn't catch it, and then fell off. But the armored rhinoceros in the ranch is good at this. During this period, not only the armored rhinos around her were not frightened, but also the armored rhinoceros shook off her, and after turning her head to look at it, she continued to turn around and go to graze without supplementation. The idea of kicking. Zylaksha adjusted her helmet, feeling a little annoyed. Isn't it too difficult to subdue it while riding? On your side. After experiencing it, Zylaksha felt that it was even more impossible for Armu to succeed. But in the end, I only saw that in the video, Armu was stroking the horn of an armored rhinoceros, and the latter seemed to enjoy it. Have you subdued the armored rhino? Zylaksha remembered just now that the armored rhino over there was much more violent than the one here. Not yet. After hearing this, Eminem denied it first, and then pointed the camera at the war in front of him. After the armored rhinoceros with scarred horns and eyes started wrestling with the boss here before, all the other armored rhinos around fell silent and watched the battle here. You don't mean to subdue these two armored rhinos, do you? Zylaksha looked at the two armored rhinos with gritty teeth. Their horns collided with sparks when these armored rhinos are wrestling. They also follow the rules. They just use their horns to collide and compete, and they don't use skills. Zylaksha exclaimed suddenly. I saw the armored rhinoceros with scarred horns and eyes. At this time, the big iron armored rhinoceros tried hard to leave. The horn, which had cracks in the first place, was actually broken, and the whole body fell to the side. Horn. The big man roared, as if to declare his authority. But at this moment, the iron armored rhinoceros with a broken horn managed to stand up again and let out a deep whine. Horn. The big man's roar faltered, and then angrily glared at the hornless rhino who continued to provoke him. Seeing this, Armu ignored the armored rhinoceros under rolling, but stood up nervously. Generally speaking, in the wild, this kind of Pokémon fights will not kill people, but if one of them on one side, if you can't beat it and still want to die, then it's two things. Horn. The big rhino stared at the hornless rhino, which was struggling to get up and kept whining, while pawing the ground with its front hooves, as if to give it another final blow. Wait. Let's stop fighting. Seeing this situation, Armu realized that he couldn't just sit idly by. Eminem suspects that this may be the fault of Miss Spring again. Although the armored rhinoceros is not Nidorino, it is reasonable to say that it would not be so miserable for courtship. But after all, the seasons are here, and it is normal to be a little restless. However, the two armored rhinos ignored Eminem's obstruction. Don't come close. Seeing that Eminem was going to move forward, Zylaksha hurriedly shouted on the phone. However, Eminem still walked over, but he didn't directly block between the two. Otherwise it would not be a joke if he was hit. In this world, Sequence 8 doesn't have much stronger physique than normal people, but it can be said to be slightly stronger, not as good as many fighting trainers. Even Zyalalan can't stop him from kicking. let alone the armored rhinoceros, but I saw Eminem standing next to the hornless rhino, facing the big man, stretching out his right hand, facing him with his palm, and holding his right wrist with his left hand. Before, Eminem asked Yumi about the skills of special communication abilities. The Junsha clan should have the most experience in this regard. Although Yumi can only be regarded as a newcomer in the Junsha clan. But unlike her seemingly carefree personality, she has a solid foundation in this aspect. And Eminem has benefited a lot from a little advice. Eminem's animal senses and the power of Junsha are two different things, but it is still possible to learn some techniques, such as now, it is trying to extend the distance of animal senses instead of just pasting them. It's just that Eminem is still not proficient, and at the same time, that his head is sweating. He can feel the sense spreading over a little bit. At first the big man ignored Emu at all, just glared at the provocative horned rhinoceros, but, gradually, it seemed to sense something, calmed down a little, and looked at Emu next to him wonderingly. At this distance, with Eminem's proficiency, he can't do much, but at least he can convey his heart. Horn. The hornless rhino was next to Emu, still barking non-stop, and shaking its head, poking Emu with its broken horn, as if telling him to get out of the way. Even without animal perception, Eminem can see that this guy's a big food addict. Of course, it's not really a dish, at least in this group of armored rhinos. They can be ranked among the top few, but there is still a gap between them and the big one. Seeing that the big man couldn't stand the provocation and was about to attack again, Eminem quickly let go of his right wrist and left hand and put it directly on the head of the hornless rhino next to him. Eminem also wants to know what kind of enmity and grievance it is. Could it be that his girlfriend was robbed? Under the animal senses, the other party's thoughts are directly transmitted to Eminem. That's it. I thought it was amazing. No way. Attract attention. Give birth. Slim Shady. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelos. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 62. Hey, where are you from? A primary school student? Are you courting? Eminem couldn't help shouting at the hornless rhino. Hearing this, the hornless rhino immediately panicked and looked around. Eminem's animal senses can not only read the voice of the heart, but even read the deeper consciousness, and the big man who was staring at it finally calmed down a little after it stopped being provocative, then turned his head with an expression of not as knowledgeable as a fool, and walked slowly back to his throne to lie on his stomach. Only then did Eminem realize that this big man was a female armored rhinoceros, and this hornless rhinoceros, take a break. The horns are all off. Eminem decisively stopped it from hesitating, as if it wanted to provoke again. Sure enough, it froze for a moment, then, cross-eyed, as if looking at its own horn, and immediately showed a frightened expression. Between armored rhinos, if they want to mate, they need to grind their horns to achieve it. It's okay, it will grow again. Eminem comforted after patting its head. As he spoke, Emu took out several bottles of potions from his backpack and then blended them on the spot. The horns of armored rhinos can indeed regenerate, but if they are allowed to grow freely, they may not grow well in a year or two. Amu, are you alright? Zyarksha's urgent voice came. From the very beginning, she didn't know what Eminem was doing. It's okay, I'm dispensing medicine for the injured armored rhino. Eminem reassured. I saw that Eminem applied the prepared medicine on the broken corner of the horn, and the other liquid soaked in the bandage, and then tied it up at the broken corner. In this way, it only takes half a month to grow well, and the newly grown horns will not be very brittle, said Amu after tying it up. The hornless rhino bumped Eminem with its cut to show its friendliness. Then I looked at the big man who went back to sleep. It seemed that he was already planning half a month later. At this time, Eminem pressed his backhand on the hornless rhino's head and clearly conveyed his thoughts to the past, and at the same time said, I'm not interested in you. Why don't you come with me? The hornless rhinoceros, which had originally expressed friendliness to Eminem, immediately turned away. Amu was not in a hurry and said from a different angle, look, your current method can't attract people's attention at all. Why don't you go on a trip with me? You can learn a lot, and you can evolve later. Maybe it's done. And when I'm not on the road with me, I will also set up a storage point here. The reason why there are so many armored rhinos with ribbons, that is, trainers, is that the ranch provides foster care for armored rhinos. Each trainer can carry 6 Pokémon with him, but only these 6 are in the Pokéball, and more than 6 Pokémon that are sent back to the research institute or the breeding house are in a stocking state point. And in the armored rhino ranch, there are so many of the same race here, which is also good for the growth of Pokémon. Naturally, most of the trainers usually choose to foster here. If you stay here, everyone will know the skills you know. Why don't you go on a trip with me, evolve later, and come back after learning new skills? Isn't it more attractive to others? Eminem guided language is just Eminem's habit. In fact, he is using animal senses to communicate on a deeper level. Most Pokémon cannot directly understand language. What they understand is the emotion in language. Point at this time, what Eminem instilled into the mind of the hornless rhinoceros was a picture of majestic armored Tyrannosaurus Rex walking square steps after returning to the ranch, gaining everyone's admiration. Sure enough, the hornless rhino's eyes lit up immediately. Horn. The hornless rhino looked at Eminem seriously and confirmed to him, "You really want to train and fight Pokémon, right?" Apparently it also knows that most of the same race are trained in mounts, but it prefers to fight. Of course, it's just a part-time job before evolution. Eminem said, directly took out the Pokeball and hit the switch on the head of the armored rhino in front of him. The latter was received into the elf ball in response, and a moment later the elf ball flashed the light and sound effect of successfully subduing it. At this time, the big man who was originally lying on the Mojio rock seemed to realize something, opened his eyes, and looked this way, and then turned his head away. "Hey, what are you doing? Have you successfully subdued it?" Zyarksha, who was on the other side of the video call in the illustrated book, was already dumbfounded at this moment. Why did the armored rhinoceros over there obviously become more irritable? But Emu managed to subdue it after mumbling, "Well, so I happen to have 6 Pokémon." Eminem looked at the Pokeball that had just subdued the iron rhino, and then released it again. Horn. The hornless rhino yelled at the big man on the rock again. The other party opened his eyes slightly, glanced at him with dead fish eyes, then turned his head and changed the direction to sleep. Horn. The hornless rhino seemed to be saying, "I will teach you how to be a cow next time I come back." Pokemon's concept of mate selection is different from that of human beings, and Eminem didn't have to understand it. Maybe the hornless rhino likes it. Let's go to the central lake first. By the way, I should give you a name. How about No Horn? Eminem said, trying to turn over from the side, but was knocked away by No Horn. After some back and forth, Eminem finally managed to ride the armored rhino. After he came up with the name Aduan. He obviously doesn't understand human language very well, but he cares about names. Riding the armored rhino all the way to the central lake, Eminem also felt the speed of riding. Among the riding Pokémon, Iron Rhino has excellent speed and stamina, but the start is slower, and the biggest problem is controllability. Usually, armored rhinos trained as mounts are mostly docile and stable, but they still have the floor of armored rhinos, easy to get on top. So when riding an armored rhinoceros, you must pay attention to speed control. It's okay in the city, because there is a speed limit, and the armored rhino will not run too fast in places with heavy traffic. Mainly in the flat field. Once the armored rhinos are kept running at too high a speed for a long time, they will naturally go up. Even if there is a stone in front of them, they have to smash away. As a result, the rider is vulnerable to injury. This point was emphatically emphasized in the theoretical assessment of the armored rhino's riding license. But for Eminem, this is not a difficult task, as long as he uses his animal senses to communicate with Arduan. His superior will naturally be calmed down. On the way, Amu didn't know why Zyarksha cut off the contact, but there were many people on her side, so there was no need to worry about safety. As a result, as soon as Amu arrived at the lake, she saw Zyarksha, who was a bit embarrassed. Even though she was wearing protective gear, finally tamed the armored rhinoceros she had chosen, just in time to see the scene where she picked up the Pokeball. Zyarksha was a little embarrassed when she saw Eminem arriving on an armored rhinoceros with a broken horn point obviously. She didn't want to lose to Armu, so she was in a hurry to tame the armored rhinoceros. If Armu was later, she would see Zyarksha who was waiting leisurely. Chapter 63. Armored Rhino Ranch, North Entrance Point. After Armu and Zyarksha chose the armored rhino they tamed, they rode directly to this side. This armored rhinoceros was it tamed by Mojiawan. When the staff registered, they recognized Arduan at a glance. Point it may also be from the broken horn, guessing that it was injured in a fight. That's right, no problem, right? Eminem confirmed. Of course there is no problem with the rules, but they may have a little temper, because when they entered the ranch, the elf balls that Armu and Zyarksha carried with them were marked, and if they had been used halfway, they would be able to tell, so the other party would not suspect that Armu had fought to subdue the armored rhinoceros. But the staff also know that Mojiawan is full of problem children. That's good. Don't worry, I have a good relationship with it, Eminem said reassuringly. It may just be injured now, the staff reminded. Point probably in his opinion, Arduan was temporarily docile because of the injury of the unicorn. Point however, he was too happy that the armored rhinoceros at Mojio Rock could be chosen away, so he just reminded him. Point after going through the foster care procedures and confirming that the armored rhino's elf ball will be sent to the ranch when it is replaced, Eminem and Zyarksha made an appointment for the riding license assessment for the next day. Point afterwards, rest for a day in the room provided by the ranch. Point Armu still wrote down the training plan of Arduan without hesitation, while Zyarksha stayed up all night cramming to endorse. Point Arduan's level is already not low, it's 33 levels, slightly higher than Armen, S1, and Nido. Point Ironclad Rhino's racial value is not high, only 345 points. After all, it hasn't evolved yet. Point however, among the 6 racial values, the racial values of physical strength, physical attack, and physical defense have reached as high as 80, 85, and 95 points. The 3 accounted for nearly 80% of the racial values, which belonged to the type with very concentrated racial values. As for the weak 3 items, the special attack racial value itself is of little significance to the armored rhinoceros. No one will train its special attack skills, and the low speed can also be compensated by trick space, so it belongs to the racial value and is very suitable for combat type. Point after its evolution once, the iron armored Tyrannosaurus, also known as drilling rhinoceros, has a racial value of 485, and the final evolved super armored rhino, with a racial value of 535. Are also typical physical strength, physical attack, and physical defense accounted for a large proportion of, ignoring special attack and considering trick space, only special defense is lower. Therefore, most of the trainers who cultivate super armored rhinoceros will tailor special defense armor for them, which is equivalent to the assault vest in the game. The external items of Pokémon in this world will also be compatible with them. Genes combined for powerful effects. Note 1. In addition, because the armored Tyrannosaurus is not the final evolution form, and it also has a race value of 485, which is not low, there is also a training method that does not evolve to a super armored rhinoceros, but carries a evolution stone, so that the attack will be lower, but the dual defense is higher. And the overall race value is equivalent to higher than that of the super armored rhinoceros. Note 2. Which route Arduan will take. Emu has not decided yet, but in the early stage of training, the two are similar with minor differences, and there will be time for targeted training after they evolve into iron armored Tyrannosaurus. Point ironclad rhinoceros evolves very late. It takes level 42 to evolve into ironclad Tyrannosaurus, and ironclad Tyrannosaurus needs to fuse the carapace that Shakarus shed when it evolved into Benjulus as the evolution material. Don't worry about it for a while. If all goes well, Eminem's plan is to train the main force to level 50, at least close to level 50, before his pharmacist assessment. That is, before July 15th. Level 50 is considered a hurdle in the growth of Pokémon. In the rookie competition, even in the official stage, the main force of the players is generally at this level. The riding license examination on the second day is not difficult for Eminem. I have already memorized the general written test. As for the practical part, the armored rhinoceros certificate is to ride the armored rhinoceros. Within 15 minutes, run the set a 12-kilometer test with obstacles. That's right. The Pokémon riding assessment practice in this world also has the meaning of life willfulness point, since the difficulty of riding an armored rhinoceros is that it is easy to lose control at high speed. It is necessary to test whether the rider can maintain the ability to avoid obstacles while reaching a certain speed. Of course, during the assessment, there will be examiners riding other armored rhinos to follow, and they can rescue them at critical moments in this practical exercise between Armu and Zyaksha. A total of 8 people were assessed at the same time, and 2 examiners followed. Eminem could feel that the attention of the 2 of them was on him from the beginning. There is no way, although Arduan doesn't even have horns now. But it can be clearly seen that he was killed in a fight, and with his fierce aura, he looks like a combative armored rhinoceros. After the 8 of them rode the armored rhinoceros, the other 7 were obviously avoiding Arduan. Timing begins following the examiner's order. The 7 of them urged the armored rhino to rush up. There was one person who failed to start and was trying to appease his armored rhino. Arduan's start was obviously faster than other armored rhinos, and Eminem found that one of the examiners was staring at him. The examiner specially accelerated with himself and handed over the other 7 to the examiner behind a look of fear that he will be thrown off, or that the armored rhino will lose control. Arduan rushed extremely fast, and Eminem didn't have any skillful moves. The examiner really broke into a cold sweat at first, but gradually, the examiner found that, although the hornless rhino rushed fast, it was very calm. When encountering obstacles, it would slow down in advance. It seemed to be rushing, but there was no sign of topping. Others are controlling the speed of the armored rhinoceros. While reaching the standard, they should not be too fast to avoid topping. Only Eminem is appeasing the ironclad rhinoceros, speeding up without falling into the topping state. When the examiner found that Eminem's right hand was always on the armored rhino's head, he basically guessed that this must be a trainer with special abilities. The bad news is that, probably because Arduan's aura was so fierce that it affected the other armored rhinos in the same group, only 3 of them passed. The good news is that Zyaksha passed, so the 2 ignored the grievances of other people in the same group and swaggered away from the armored rhinoceros ranch. With the iron armored rhino that can be ridden, traveling in the wild becomes much faster as long as it is on a relatively flat road that is not far from the main road. The armored rhinoceros can basically run even if it is far away from the main road. Some paths that need to climb mountains, cross mountains, and cross rivers are not suitable for armored rhinoceros. The trainer can also drive himself. It can be said that it is very convenient to retract the mount into the Pokeball. Amu and Zyaksha, who did not plan to capture Pokémon nearby, soon came to Nibi City on April 30th. Note 1. Items such as assault vest are set in this article and need to be tailored. After being equipped with genetic points, the genetic structure will be changed, and the changing skills cannot be used. Special defense armor is equivalent to the assault vest in the game, has the effect of increased special defense, but only offensive skills can be used. The principle of exquisite props is to widen the skill bridge of the first used skill each time and temporarily squeeze other skill bridges to achieve the corresponding increase effect. Note 2. The effect of Evolution Strange Stone is the same as in the game. It increases the defense by 50%, and it only takes effect for Pokémon that have not evolved to the final form. Chapter 64. Alliance 200, April 30th, Nibi City. At the entrance of the Pokémon Center, Eminem and Zyaksha just got off the armored rhino. How are you preparing tomorrow? Zyaksha looked at Amu seriously. Huh? What are you preparing for? Eminem looked puzzled. Amu's upright look made Zyaksha stunned. Dr. Oka's grandson, didn't he have an appointment with you on May 1st? But I didn't promise him either. Eminem said naturally. Zyaksha, hey, people have said that you won't avoid the battle, right? Zyaksha looked full of anger. She had a sense of substitution. No, I didn't agree at all. Armu didn't even think about fighting Xiaomao now. At this moment, Xiaomao's voice came from behind Armu. "Oh. Can I take this as fear?" Xiaoxia was embarrassed when she heard the words. After all, she was caught straight when she confessed instead. Armu said with the same expression, "Yes, do you need me to call Dr. Roki and tell him Xiaomao is already very promising, and don't use me to motivate Xiaomao in the future?" Xiaomao became even more angry. "If you have to compare, how about we compare pharmacy?" Eminem said, very enlightened. At this time, Eminem had already walked to the entrance of the Pokémon Center and took out the Pokémon illustrated book and would use this to open a room later. At the same time, I also saw the unread messages accumulated before coming to Nibi City, which is the signal area. Amu looked at it and was suddenly taken aback, and Xiaomao was even more displeased with his flirtatious attitude. He caught up and said, "If you are still a trainer with backbone, in 2 days, on the 3rd, at 8 o'clock in the morning, against the club, you make a good start," Eminem said directly. Seeing Amu's attitude, making a 180-degree turn, Xiaomao was stunned. At this time, Amu had already gone to the front desk to open a room. Shouted from behind, "Then don't run away." Seeing this, Xiaoxia was also a little curious. Based on her understanding of Emu, he should not be so easily provoked. "Why did you suddenly agree?" Xiaoxia asked curiously. "Drive." Oki also heard about it. "Please, if I can, beat his grandson once, so that he won't continue to swell," Amu said, looking at the unread information on the illustrated book. Dr. Oki also helped Amu save the excellent frog seeds. Although Grandma Leixi entrusted him to prepare them, Amu is still very grateful to Dr. Oki. Since Dr. Oki said so, then, can you beat that guy? Xiaoxia became worried again. "Not necessarily. Since we are facing the challenge, we can only prepare well," Eminem said half modestly and half seriously. Xiaomao only traveled for 2 months, and although he is the grandson of Dr. Oki, except for an EV, he doesn't have any Pokémon that he cultivated in advance, which is different from badges. But Amu still dare not say that he is sure to win, not to mention there is only a wind speed dog exposed by Xiaomao. Moreover, Xiaomao, as a talented rookie trainer who is rooted in Miahang, may not be worse than Eminem in terms of short-term training results. After all, Eminem is only the beast tamer of sequence 8 now. What's more, Eminem's training is very planned, and he trains with the goal of the rookie competition, not to become stronger in a short period of time. And Xiaomao's Pokémon, Windspeed Dog, is an evolutionary type of KT dog. If you have Firestone, it will evolve very quickly, and the race value of 555 is also high enough. In addition, if his Ibrahimovic, like in the animation, chooses the Moon Ibrahimovic route, it belongs to the type that is connected with the trainer and evolves when the bond is high enough. It can also evolve very early, and the racial value of 525 is not low. As for Usangia, I don't know if his Jenny has reached level 36 now. If he has reached level 36, Eminem really can't stand another water arrow turtle that has evolved to its final form. But this probability is not great. Eminem's Froggrass is only level 30 now. Part of the reason is that Eminem did not rush to upgrade our lion's level, that is, to increase the growth rate, but to learn skills solidly. Otherwise, if it is commonplace to learn this skill once it is awakened, and to practice that skill after it is awakened, the growth rate will be very high in a short period of time. According to Eminem's own calculation, if it is the kind of training method that is eager to grow, our lion is probably already at level 36. After all, Amu directly manually awakened all the skills that can be awakened through genetics for our lion. These dozens of genetic skills are equivalent to opening dozens of channels to promote growth. It's just that Eminem's training has always been considered in the long run. To train one skill, one must at least reach a proficiency level before training the next one, so as not to interfere with each other. If he waited until the rookie competition in September, Eminem would be very confident about Xiaomao, but now he can't. But Amu thought in his heart that Xiaomao definitely doesn't have the ability to ghost the upper body, so even if he chooses to upgrade the level quickly, the probability of his Usangia reaching Level 36 is not high. Okay. Let me train with you starting tomorrow. Zylaksha hasn't forgotten that she is the character of Eminem's rival. At least she thinks. So Point Amu didn't reject her kindness either. Although Zylaksha is a water type trainer and Zyomeo has no obvious attribute inclination, there is nothing wrong with having one more person to fight with him. Well, let's go to the Stark store first tomorrow morning. Since it's so important, I also need to buy 1 or 2 battle props. Eminem was about to get serious. The largest supplier of potions is a Girardi group. The largest supplier of battle props is the Stark group. And the largest supplier of pokeballs and outdoor travel products is the Deodoc group. These 3 have specialized stores in major cities around the world. In Kanto, the Deodoc group is considered to be the most powerful. After all, its headquarters is in the Chengdu area, which is also the Quartz Alliance, while the Girardi Consortium is headquartered in the Fingyuan area, and the Stark group is headquartered in the Hezhang area. They are considered foreign. Or, there are only specialized chain stores in big cities. As for the truly local Suzuki group, because its main projects are ore, fossil and energy businesses, naturally it does not need stores, and only some fossil museums and museums are open to the outside world. Buy it tomorrow? Will it be in time? Zylaksha questioned after hearing the words, battle. Props can't just be carried on the body, and its effects also require skill, and it may not be suitable to carry them directly. It's okay. I just bought some simple ones, and I probably already have an idea. Eminem's eyes were a little empty. As for the berry medicine used in the battle, there is no need for Eminem to buy it. After all, he himself has the level of an expert pharmacist. Why don't you go today? Even if Stark's store is about to close, you can go to the street shop for battle props. Zylaksha seemed more anxious than Eminem. The Stark store only focuses on the full range of goods, good quality, and multiple chains. Far from being a monopoly. No, it's not that urgent. Stark's store has more stock, compared with lively and cheap. Eminem prefers convenience. And in a while, Eminem is going to call Grandma Leixi and King Mui to report that they are safe. Chapter 65 Fighting against Zyomeo. On May 3rd, Eminem and Zylaksha came to the battle club early in the morning. In fact, they also came to the battle club every day for the previous 2 days, and today is a day when they officially made an appointment with Zyomeo. Zylaksha looked around and saw a taxi stop. After seeing the person getting off, Zylaksha quickly waved her hands. It was only then that Amu knew that Yuanzi had also come. You called Yuanzi? Amu suddenly became nervous and looked around. Could it be even a place as safe as the battle club can't be free from the Grim Reaper? Fortunately, Eminem did not find Zyadalan and Conan. Well, when we contacted last night, Yuanzi said that Zyadalan's father was also in Nabi City, and Zyadalan was going to find him. So Yuanzi himself had nothing to do, and knew that you were going to fight Zyomeo today. So he came here. Seeing that you were staying up all night preparing tactics, you forgot to tell me. Zylaksha said with some embarrassment. After hearing this, Amu breathed a sigh of relief. I said, why haven't you come to me yet? It turns out that I'm about to fight someone when I arrived in Nabi City. Yuanzi joked when he came over. Amu and Zylaksha didn't take the initiative to contact Yuanzi because they were preparing for the battle with Zyomeo. Last night, Yuanzi contacted Zylaksha out of curiosity. I didn't want to. Eminem shrugged. At this moment, Zyomeo also walked over with a stern and arrogant face. It's good that you come. It seems that you didn't escape with an excuse this time. Yo, long time no see. Yuanzi greeted with a big frown. She knew Zyomeo before. After all, he was Damu's grandson. Seeing this, Zyomeo was taken aback for a moment, then came to his senses, nodded reservedly and said, it turns out that Miss Yuanzi is also there. Yuanzi pouted even more. Zyomeo was actually quite handsome, but Yuanzi was not interested in guys who pretended to be lofty. Have you made an appointment for the duel? Eminem asked directly. Originally, Zyomeo was going to fight, so of course he was going to be the host. Ready? Do you need a referee from East George? Zyomeo asked provocatively, with a tone of don't be convinced if you lose. No, I'll do what the referee says. Zylaksha immediately said from the side, oh, yes. Xiaomao said in a hesitant manner. Xiaoxia immediately regretted it, wondering if she seemed a little cowardly in this way. She was really anxious to become a referee, because she was worried that Amu would lose to Xiaomao. Then, I'll be the audience too. Sonoko also said. She has nothing to do today, and in the afternoon she is planning to take Xiaoxia and Emu to the museum. That will be the exhibition hall the day after tomorrow. Xiaomao naturally did not refuse, and soon the four of them came to the battlefield he had reserved. There is no auditorium, but the area is standard. It is located on the top floor, the roof is open, and the floor is filled with enough ground. As long as it is not intentional. Dig through, unless Gallardo uses dig hole. Here, you don't have to worry about falling downstairs. It can be regarded as a standard venue, which has no advantages or disadvantages for any attribute. 4 on 4, standard doubles rules. The two sides start to fill the game ball. Xiaoxia announced at this time with dignity. At this time, Amu and Xiaomao were also standing at the positions of the trainers on both sides, and took out their game balls for Eminem. There is no room for choice, although Boom and Coffin can be trained now. After all, they have not really improved their growth rate under Eminem's training. Sending them to fight may arouse repulsion instead. In this case, Eminem can play only Coconut Egg Tree, Froggrass, Nidorino and Iron Rhino. The battle begins, accompanied by Xiaoxia's announcement. Eminem and Xiaomao raised the game ball at the same time. Each released 2 beams of light onto the field at the same time, and 4 Pokémon appeared on both sides. Garlic, coconut, eggs. Wow. Kami. I saw Xiaomao on the field with Wind Speed Dog and Kami Turtle, while Eminem chose Coconut Egg Tree and Froggrass as the starters to fight against them. Heh. Wind Speed Dog, get rid of that Froggrass first, and Kami Turtle, you will support from the side. Xiaomao sneered and decided on the overall strategy. Yuanzi wrung his fingers and muttered, Am's side has 2 grasses, and Xiaomao's side has 1 fire and 1 water. Is it a balance of power? 4 newcomers. Water fire grass is the easiest judgment to restrain. Indeed, purely from the point of view of attributes, fire overcomes grass and grass overcomes water, which can be regarded as mutual restraint. However, Xiaomao felt that it was an ill-considered choice for Emu to directly throw 2 grass systems, and his own fire and water were not a loss in any situation. Of course, this is just Xiaomao's wishful thinking. When Eminem considers doing this, he naturally has his own intentions, more important considerations than the acceptance. Stay safe. Eminem simply commanded. Seeing that Xiaomao sent Kami Turtle, Amu breathed a sigh of relief as expected. His Usanjia hadn't even reached level 36 yet. Coconut Egg Tree and Froggrass fought very shrunk. Coconut Egg Tree was responsible for using telekinesis to block the charge of the Wind Speed Dog, while Froggrass stretched out 6 vines, which also mainly harassed. After evolving to Froggrass, you can control more vines. Generally, you can control 4 when you first evolve into Frogweed, and you can control Latly State when you evolve to Frogflower, but the most flexible ones are only 2. Froggrass does not seek to attack at this time, it only cooperates with the Coconut Egg Tree to set up barriers. Just like Kami Turtle was also spraying water at the side at this time, and didn't come forward. It wasn't a skill, spray water. It was just an ordinary water spray, and its aggressiveness was not as good as hitting it directly. Xiaomao also discovered Eminem's tactics at this time, and immediately realized that Eminem's Froggrass is probably also a special attack type, waiting for skills here, but he just sneered. Can you still be faster than the Wind Speed Dog? After several trials, the Wind Speed Dog was blocked by Nyanli and the Rattan every time he charged, and only bit the Rattan twice, but he completed the skill preparation first. Wind Speed Dog, use, flash charge. Suddenly, the Wind Speed Dog's whole body was surrounded by fire energy, as if it turned into a ball of fire. Not only did it increase its charge speed, but also the fire energy dissipated from its body instantly burned its vines. While Froggrass was in pain, it didn't dare to resist, and quickly retracted the vine. Flashing Flame Charge, a 120 power fire type physical attack skill. The only flaw is that he also has to suffer some backlash damage point. If it is directly rushed, it is not impossible to beat the Froggrass in seconds, and it is still too early for the Froggrass and Coconut Egg Tree to prepare their skills, and it is impossible to use their skills to counteract the wave point. The target of the wind speed dog is obviously the Froggrass. In this real Pokémon world, everyone's durability is stronger than in the game, and Coconut Egg Tree will definitely not lose in seconds. Xiaomao wants to get rid of one first. However, the positions of Froggrass and Coconut Egg Tree are also particular. At this time, there is the power of Coconut Egg Tree on one side to obstruct them, and on the other side, the two also adjust their positions in coordination, so that the position of Coconut Egg Tree can be blocked from the attack of the Wind Speed Dog all the time. Angle point. Although the Wind Speed Dog's running speed at this time also has the bonus of skills, it is obviously impossible to avoid the game of the eagle catches the chicken for a while, and he is always being roasted. In order to avoid the fire energy that was exhausted in this move, the Wind Speed Dog slammed into the Coconut Egg Tree second best. Although he tried his best to interfere, it was obviously impossible to avoid this move. The Coconut Egg Tree was directly hit by the Wind Speed Dog, surrounded by red fire energy all over his body, and was knocked upside down on 3 sides. However, just when Xiaomao felt that he had earned his blood, a strange force suddenly rose from the whole body of Coconut Egg Tree, and then, when the Wind Speed Dog was about to chase after it, the Coconut Egg Tree suddenly bowed its head. A burst of hypnotic powder sprinkled out of the lush leaves. Under Xiaomao's surprise, he didn't even have time to shout "get away." Chapter 66 First Reading. How is it possible? Xiaomao couldn't help but exclaimed when he saw that Feng Speed Dog was hit by hypnosis powder and quickly fell asleep. How could the Coconut Egg Tree be so fast? Obviously, judging from the previous mutual testing, the Coconut Egg Tree should be about 30 levels, 1 or 2 levels lower than the Wind Speed Dog, and the speed race value of the Wind Speed Dog is nearly double that of the Coconut Egg Tree. Suddenly, Xiaomao's eyes changed, and then he said in a deep voice, "Shichou potion." Although Amu didn't answer, he had an expression of "that's true." Shichou potion, which is the medicine made by Shichouguo, has a similar effect to the Shichouguo in the game. Most of the berries in the game take effect when the HP is less than a quarter, but in this real Pokémon world, after drinking the potion in advance, it will be activated when the damage is severe. Shichou fruit is commonly known as preemptive fruit in the game. Its effect is to make the next attack a preemptive attack. It can ignore the speed and directly increase the priority of moves. In this non-turn-based world, Shichou Potion, the effect is also similar to preemptive attack, which can make Pokémon overdraw a skill that is, like other preemptive skills. When the Coconut Egg Tree was severely injured by the Wind Speed Dog, the effect of the Shituo Potion that he drank in advance took effect, and the backhand was a hypnotic powder which smeared the face of the defenseless Wind Speed Dog. However, even though Wind Speed Dog fell asleep for a while, Coconut Egg Tree and Froggrass did not take the initiative to attack it for a while, and Xiaomao was not in a hurry to replace it. Even if he wanted to replace it, he had to complete the skill preparation point. The targets of the two grasses are directly concentrated on Kami Turtle, and the telekinetic power of Coconut Egg Tree begins to change from harassment to restricting movement, making it even more difficult for Kami Turtle to avoid the whipping from Froggrass. Kami Turtle couldn't help crying out in pain, but in the end, Kami Turtle relied on its small advantage and level to complete the skill preparation first, and Xiaomao, who was very sensitive to this, immediately commanded, "Kami Turtle, use the water wave, wake up the Wind Speed Dog." I saw Kami Turtle gliding with a turtle shell, temporarily dodge the attack, and then spit out a stream of water. It was called water wave. It might as well be called water gun. Under control, it is possible to reduce the power of some moves. Water wave, or water gun, in the game naturally have no effect of waking up the sleep state, but in this real world, any attack may wake up sleep, especially water type, ice type, and scaring skills. But at this moment, Froggrass, who was a little slower, was able to use moves. Xiaomao even made preparations for Froggrass to burst into a flying leaf storm. and kill Kami Turtle in seconds. As long as he can wake up the wind speed dog, he will not lose. But, without Emu's command, Froggrass made a garlic sound, and the flower bud on its back flashed, and then, the sunlight on the battlefield became stronger all of a sudden. Because Eminem can communicate with each other when training Pokémon, he can rehearse tactics more directly. When fighting, he only needs to give simple commands or reminders. When the situation changes, the weak water stream spit out by the Kami Turtle was instantly invaded by sunlight, and the power of the water system in it was cancelled by nearly half. When it sprayed on the wind speed dog, it only wrinkled the wind speed dog's nose and failed to wake up. Seeing that the wind speed dog didn't wake up, Eminem couldn't help cheering. Under the sunny sky, the power of fire type skills is increased by 50%, and the power of water type skills is weakened by 50%. If you don't sleep the wind speed dog first, Eminem really dare not let Froggrass open this weather. As for the second Kami Turtle, obviously not as important as the weather. If the weather is turned on, the opponent's Kami Turtle will do nothing, and it doesn't matter if you let it go temporarily. I saw that under the strong sunlight, the leaves on the back of the froggrass and the leaves on the head of the coconut egg tree shone slightly. It was after absorbing the doubled power of the sun that chlorophyll began to take effect. Harvesting's efficiency began to improve. Chlorophyll, the increased speed, is naturally the speed of skill preparation. The original speed of the inconspicuous froggrass immediately became an advantage after the speed doubled. And what Xiaomeo didn't expect was that it was Coconut Egg Tree who used the second round of skills first. Although the invisible skill slot of the Coconut Egg Tree is not full, but under the effect of harvest, it absorbs the power of the sun. On the coconut egg tree, the ingredients of the Sakura fruit regenerate, and the Sacho potion, once again effective, although the debt owed last time has not been repaid, but now you can again. In this state, the speed of the coconut egg tree is no longer important. The frequency of using skills mainly depends on how long it takes for the harvest characteristic to regenerate the ingredients of the Shido fruit. Amen. Use Flying Leaf Storm. Eminem reminded. If it's a normal strategy, Eminem actually doesn't need to make a sound, but according to what Eminem taught Coconut Egg Tree before, if he doesn't command at this time, it will probably use Froggrass to wait for a while, and then Sludge Bomb, Supernatural Power, attack the sleeping wind speed dog together, and try to take it away in a wave. But Armu shouted, Flying Leaf Storm at this time, and Armen immediately understood that this was to make it second Kamagi. Otherwise, the grass type skills will not be effective against the wind speed dog. Kamagi, get out of the way. After Xiaomeo found out about Armu's decision, he immediately commanded Kamagi, but it was a pity that he didn't have time. I saw the coconut egg tree shake its head, and the surging grass type energy turned into countless flying leaves like knives, sweeping towards Kami Turtle like a storm. Although Kamagi jumped to the side, it was still more than half rolled up. Kamagi, who had already been weakened a lot by 2-on-1, fainted and fell to the ground. After all, Flying Leaf Storm is a powerful skill with 130 power. It is the grass genus of the coconut egg tree, and it restrains the Kami Turtle. However, such a high power naturally has side effects. The special attack will be greatly reduced due to overdraft. Kami Turtle loses its combat power. Xiaomeo, please replace the Pokémon immediately. Xiaoxia immediately judged, TCH. Seeing this, Xiaomao couldn't help but gritted his teeth bitterly. At the same time, Xiaoxia looked at Amu anxiously at this time, and some didn't understand why he didn't wait for Froggrass first and join hands to solve the most threatening wind speed dog, but instead used Coconut Egg Tree to overdraw, but also get rid of the less threatening Kami Turtles first. Could it be too hasty? Yuanzi on the side also saw Xiaoxia's worry and couldn't help saying, it's okay, look at his expression, he must not be rushing to make random moves. Indeed, the reason why Armu gave priority to clearing Kami Turtle out at this time was because he saw that Xiaomeo was so confident that he was not in a hurry to take back the wind speed dog. Now the wind speed dog should be in a state of ready skills, so Armu read it first, and Xiaomeo's Kami Turtle is likely to pray for rain. Once praying for rain is successful, if it is rainy weather, the probability of being released from the sleep state will increase greatly, and the difficulty of hitting Hypnosis powder will also increase sharply, which is basically useless. But now that Xiaomao saw that the Kami turtle was defeated, he also honestly double switched, took back the lost Kami turtle and the sleeping wind speed dog, and released the giant claw crab and King Nido. Chapter 67 Tools. When Armu saw that Xiaomao brought a giant claw crab, he became more and more suspicious that the Kami turtle should really be able to beg for rain just now. The reason why the skill beg for rain was useless for the first time was because of the rainy day under the wind speed. The dog's fire skills are useless. So when you don't know Eminem's tactics, you won't directly think of asking for begging for rain. And the last one is not the Moon Ibrahimovic that Eminem originally imagined, but King Nido. For Eminem, this is good news. The Nido King of Poison plus ground is at least restrained by the super energy system and the ground system point. As soon as King Nido appeared, he rushed towards the coconut tree. The Tyrannosaurus Nido King not only has a strong body, but also has fangs and claws, as well as a single horn, which is very suitable for fighting. And the giant claw crab is killing the frog grass. Hearing Nido King's roar, Armu understood that this was a Nido King with the characteristic of fighting heart, so he attacked the coconut egg tree instead of attacking the female frog grass. Coconut egg tree has no physical strength, but relying on superpowers to interfere with pure physical combat, he still barely persists. As for froggrass versus giant claw crab, although it has an advantage in terms of attributes, but it is really restrained outside of skills. The vines are too easy to be pinched. However, under the sunny day, froggrass skills were prepared very quickly. Not long after the giant claw crab came out, froggrass suddenly sent all 6 vines up without hesitation. Being pinched by the giant claw crab, he gritted his teeth and injured it, and then countless petals of grass type energy condensed and radiated from the flower buds on the back of the frog grass. When the giant claw crab wanted to scatter the vines to avoid it, it was too late. With a move of petal dance, countless dream-like petals directly swept over the giant claw crab. Petal dance. According to human calculations, the power is also 120, but the disadvantage is that after using this trick, you can only use it continuously, and after using it 2 or 3 times, you will fall into a state of chaos. However, such a powerful power, coupled with the water system of the grass system restraining the giant claw crab, should be enough to Armu shrank his pupils and found that, although the giant claw crab suffered heavy injuries, he gritted his teeth and persisted. Around the body of the giant claw crab, layers of wrinkled translucent red energy shields emerged, like an invisible cloak. Momentum. Cloak. Xiaoxia from the audience asked in surprise. Immediately, Xiaoxia looked at Xiaomao with an expression of "you are so serious." She thought that only Armu used props and potions. Seeing this, Xiaomao forcefully pretended not to see it. Momentum cloak. Eminem also notes that it is roughly equivalent to the momentum cloak in the game, but in this world, there are not really such magical cloaks or cloaks, but a kind of energy crystal, because in the effective at that time, the energy will be around the body, forming a wrinkled barrier with light and shadow effects like a cloak, so it is named momentum cloak. The effect of the momentum belt in the game is to ensure that Pokémon will not be full of blood and instantly killed. When attacked when full of blood, at least 1 HP will be left. The momentum cloak is quite different in principle, but the actual effect is similar. The effect of momentum cloak is essentially a one-time defense that is strong. When it is strong, it will be triggered when it is attacked by a very strong attack, which can weaken the attack by a large amount. So the occasion where it can play a role is actually when the physical strength is relatively intact. It will not be killed in seconds. If the physical strength itself is already not very good, then even weakening it is useless, because it only weakens the extremely strong attack for the user into a very strong attack, which will still cause a lot of damage. Also for general attacks, it will not be triggered after it works. The basic uses are already candles in the wind, and they can only hold on for a while. Therefore, it is very similar to the application occasion. of the girl of momentum in the game, except that it does not require absolute full HP, and it is not so perfect that only 1 HP is left. There is no such thing as HP in this world point. If the gap is too large, even with a momentum cloak, it will be lost in seconds. After the giant claw crab held on, it didn't take long for the skill preparation to be completed. Eminem reckoned that this was a speed-oriented giant claw crab. Giant claw crab use. Crazy. Hearing Xiaomeo's command, Amu suddenly had a toothache. Unexpectedly, Xiaomeo's giant claw crab also brought this move. Crazy is a general skill. The more serious the damage, the stronger the power. It is a move that uses the injury to stimulate the potential. According to the current physical strength of the giant claw crab, Eminem estimates that it has a power of nearly 200. When the quick dodge was invalid, the backhand shot into the soul and knocked Froggrass unconscious with one pinch. Yuanzi immediately said from the side, "Huh. Wait for the referee. Let me see if this Froggrass is asleep." Ahem. Obviously he has lost his combat effectiveness. Xiaoxia interrupted with a dry cough. Point on the one hand, it is a bit obvious. On the other hand, in doubles, it is not a good thing to delay changing people. Point seeing this, Amu immediately took back the fainted Froggrass and replaced it with an armored rhinoceros. Seeing the armored rhinoceros played by Eminem, Xiaomeo has replaced the embarrassment of the original momentum cloak and put on the evil and charming sneer again. The race value of the armored rhinoceros is not high, of course. Xiaomeo understands that the armored rhino's racial value is only weak in speed. Many kings, including the wind speed dog who is not present, are all physical attackers. King Nido was not interested in the rough-skinned and thick-skinned armored rhinoceros and continued to fight with the coconut tree, while the giant claw crab, relying on its flexibility, swam around the field. Just wait until the giant claw crab's skills are ready. Although the armored rhino's physical defense and physical strength are not low, but ground plus rock is double restrained by the water system. Xiaomeo thought a shot of water break with a power of 85 will definitely not be able to hold it. Oops. Xiaoxia muttered in a low voice, although she didn't know that Xiaomeo's giant claw crab would water burst, but she also understood the principle of restraint. Yuanzi didn't understand it yet, but couldn't help cheering Eminem off the court. The armored rhino's skill speed is flawed, but in terms of moving speed, it is faster than the giant claw crab in a straight line, but it is not as flexible as the giant claw crab. It was walked for a while, and it got a little angry. Fortunately, Eminem was off the court at this time, and he was calmed down from the air at the same time. The harvest of the coconut egg tree on the other side has once again regenerated the ingredients of the shichou fruit in the body, and the shichou potion is effective again. King Nido, get out of here. Xiaomeo predicted that coconut egg tree would use hypnosis powder. After all, this coconut egg tree has used Flying Leaf Storm before. Even if it launches an attack now, it will not have much power. But Xiaomao still guessed wrong. There is no need for Amu to direct. After knowing that Arduin is playing, they have already decided to use this last chance. With the coconut egg tree as the center, the power of the super energy system radiated out in a strange manner, and the entire playing field was distorted in space. Tricking space activated. The armored rhino's skill preparation speed suddenly increased dramatically, but Nidoking and giant claw crab, who had an advantage in speed, suddenly felt that the speed of skill preparation slowed down. Chapter 68 Ground Signboard. Tricking space? Xiaomao was taken aback when he saw this. After all, this trick is very difficult to use. As a result, the skill speed of Nidoking and giant claw dropped sharply, while that of ironclad rhinoceros and coconut egg tree increased sharply, almost no less than the former two. Of course, the frequency of coconut egg tree's current use of skills has been compared with speed. Doesn't matter, it mainly depends on Shituo potion to increase the number of overdrafts. King Nido, use poison strike. Giant claw crab, use water burst. Already at this time, King Nido and giant claw prepared their skills first, and under Xiaomeo's command, they attacked the coconut egg tree and the armored rhino respectively. Coconut tree's physical strength has not much left, and the armored rhinoceros has been severely restrained. In Xiaomeo's view, these two should be able to be dealt with this round. After that, even if my wind speed dog didn't wake up, but with King Nido and Giant Claw Crab, 2-on-1 is not a big problem. However, he saw that the poisonous power on the right paw of King Nido was entangled, forming purple spikes. After the purple fluorescence pierced into the coconut tree, it did make him faint and lose the battle. But on the other side, the moment the giant claw crab was entangled in the water, turned into a trailing water bomb and slammed into the armored rhinoceros from the side. Although it succeeded in hitting, but at this moment, a certain force in the shape of a vortex appeared on the armored rhinoceros, directly smashing the giant claw crab. The power of the water system of this move is weakened, although he also hit the armored rhinoceros so painfully that he swayed and nearly fell, but it was obviously not to the point of killing it with one blow. What? This is water resistant potion? Xiaomeo immediately realized that this was also red. To be precise, it's Thousand Fragrance Potion. Amu corrected. Thousand Fragrance Elixir, that is, the potion made of thousand fragrance fruit, commonly known as anti-fruit. When it takes effect, it can resist water type skills once, and its power will be greatly reduced. But only Pokémon restrained by water type can make it take effect. It seems to have a single function. But Amu knew before that Xiaomeo's Yuuzhan family is the water system. Although he didn't know whether it was the water arrow turtle or the kami turtle, but the armored rhinoceros was double restrained by the water system, so he ate Thousand Fragrance Potion in advance. Unexpectedly, it is not on the kami turtle, but on the giant claw crab. After blocking the weakened blow, the iron armored rhino took advantage of the situation and stomped the giant claw crab unconscious. It wasn't that it used any skills, but that the giant claw crab was already exhausted. The giant claw crab and coconut egg tree have lost their combat power, and the two sides replaced the Pokémon. Xiaoxia immediately announced. Xiaomeo didn't expect that it was a 1-for-1 exchange. The two sides replaced the Pokémon that had lost their fighting power at the same time. Xiaomeo's wind speed dog played again, but he was still asleep, and Nidorino came on Eminem's side. Oops. Doesn't Eminem have a moonstone? Sonoko slapped his forehead. If she had contacted Yuanzi a few days earlier, she would definitely be able to get the moonstone. Although evolutionary stones are priceless, but too rich is also a kind of supernatural power. Attack the iron armor first. Xiaomao was about to remind King Nido to deal with the heavily injured iron armor rhino first, but suddenly, when Nidorino was on the field, he was actually attached to a balloon, and his feet were slightly off the ground. This is not as simple as a hydrogen balloon or a helium balloon. It is not simply pulling it slightly off the ground, but wind balloon. Xiaomao reacted instantly. Wind balloon is a special balloon infused with flight type energy. It doesn't pull the user to float up, but the power of the flight type is temporarily integrated into its body, making it unaffected by gravity. The energy of the flight system can counteract gravity, instead of simply using lift to counter gravity. Therefore, the ground type energy transmitted by gravity cannot harm flying type Pokémon. The same is true for the floating characteristic and other Pokémon that can fly, but are not flying, such as three-headed dragon and desert dragonfly. Once they lose their floating characteristics, they can only use the power of their wings to counter gravity, and they cannot be immune to the ground. The energy of the type. It's not that you can be immune to ground type moves by jumping up. The biggest effect of wind balloon is that it can make Pokémon immune to ground type power transmitted by gravity, but the flaw is also obvious. It is easy to break, and a very slight attack can disable it. Now that the armored rhinoceros of the ground system is present, and Nidorino floats out again, Xiaomeo suddenly understands something. Xiaomao immediately changed his words. Nidoking, attack Nidona's balloon first, but it was still a step too late. Apparently Xiaomeo was wrong at first glance. Moreover, King Nido's first reaction was to hesitate. After all, King Nido would not easily attack a female of the Nido family. After a little delay, the armored rhino was already under the trick space, and its skills were ready. I saw the iron armored rhino raised its feet, raised its body slightly, and landed hard. With the landing of both hooves, a strong gravitational shock centered on this, instantly passed through the audience. Nidorino was not harmed because of the wind balloon, but Nidoking and Wind Speed Dog were severely injured. Earthquake. The power is 100. The attack ranges the whole field except yourself, and there are no side effects other than that. It can be called the ace skill of the ground system, even though there are some layouts on the playing club's field, and Arduin is not proficient at mastering it. The damage range is limited, and the transmission to the outside of the field is less. But Emu and Xiaomeo are still sore from the shock. This is not just the shaking of the ground, but the trembling of the whole body that is transmitted through it. Fortunately, Xiaoxia and Yuanzi were originally on the spectator stand, so they were not affected too much. Nidoking's ground plus poison attribute was restrained by the ground type attack, and his arrogance suddenly languished a lot. But for Xiaomeo, the good news is that the Wind Speed Dog woke up. It was just hit. When he fell asleep, the injury was serious at the same time. King Nido roared angrily. On the one hand, it was due to injury. On the other hand, it also discovered the problem. How can Nidona have such long horns? This is the blue Nidorino facing the attacking King Nidorino. Nidorino is naturally far from being an opponent, so he can only dodge. Unfortunately, using the wind balloon, although it offsets the gravity, it can't really make him fly up to dodge, and even affects action point at this time. The Wind Speed Dog was stopped by the Iron Armored Rhino. Regardless of the race value of the Wind Speed Dog crushing the Iron Armored Rhino, but if it really collides with each other, the Iron Armored Rhino is really not afraid. After all, if it is only about physical strength, physical attack and defense, both sides it's half a catty, and the level of the Wind Speed Dog has no advantage in front of Arduin, and Arduin is in a healthier state. On the other side, King Nido is ready for the first step at this time. King Nido, use 100,000 horsepower. Xiaomeo commanded. The poison type Nidorino is also restrained by the ground type, and for King Nido, the ground type is his own. I saw the power of the ground system surging all over King Nido's body. At this moment, he seemed to be integrated with the gravitational fluctuations, and the whole body was wrapped by the power of the ground system. Accompanied by the tremors on the ground, he rushed towards Nidorino quickly and fiercely, seeing that the latter could no longer dodge. However, under trick space, the skill preparation speeds of King Nido and Nidorino are actually about the same. Xiaomeo also understands this, but he doesn't think that Nidorino can compete with Nidorino by using his skills. The gap between the two, before Xiaomeo could think about it, the next moment Nidorino opened his mouth. There was a frozen beam. In this real world, special attacks on Nidorino are still very rare. If Nidorino only knows melee skills, he might not even have the chance to die with Nidoking. Even if Nidorino's physical strength has bottomed out, and Nidorino is still healthy. But Frozen Beam, this kind of long-range skill is very advantageous when compared with melee skills. It is equivalent to Nidoking's 100,000 horsepower, and you have to charge up against the Frozen Beam. Nidorino spat out the ice energy with all his might, while King Nidorino was getting closer and closer, even though he was gradually freezing. Seeing the ground system of the other party rushing towards him was surging power. Nido was also very nervous at this moment. In the end, when the Frozen Beam was about to run out, and King Nido also rushed in front of Nidorino, his movements had already froze to the limit, and at this moment, he wobbled and fell directly in front of Nidorino. The only output was the last unwilling wave of the arm, which sent Nidorino flying, and rolled several times, and the balloon naturally burst. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelos. There you'll find the original version of this story, and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 69 Stamping. Wind Speed Dog. Use. Back to life. Duan. Stomp back to life is a fighting skill, not the Wind Speed Dog's genus, but it restrains the armored rhinoceros, and like crazy, it is the type that the more injured, the stronger the power. It seems that Xiaomeo likes this skill very much. However, it was Arduin who raised his hoof again to meet the Wind Speed Dog. This time, the power of the earth was directly attached to Arduin's front hoof. The wind speed dog rushed with astonishing power, and the armored rhino's kick was equally powerful. Point with Feng speed dog's current injuries, back to life, has a power of 120 instead of 150, but Xiaomao couldn't help but be taken aback when he saw Eminem shouting stamp foot. Under the collision, there was a muffled sound and smoke and dust were everywhere. Point after dispersing, I saw the wind speed dog and the armored rhino, both lying on the ground. Point Xiaomao's face was also ugly for a while. He thought that the wind speed dog could hold it. He also just thought that an armored rhino would continue to use the previous earthquake, but he didn't expect to have learned stomp. Stomp is also a ground type skill, with a power of only 70, but if the user failed the ground type skill last time, then the gravitational fluctuations that failed last time will also be gathered to double the effect. Note 1. Because of the last earthquake, Nidoran used the wind balloon to hide in the past, and the feedback gravitational fluctuations were accumulated. At this time, it burst out in one breath, and the power it exerted was stronger than that of the earthquake. Equivalent to double. Stomp. Non-contact moves can counteract each other, while contact moves will hurt both sides. Seeing that the wind speed dog and the armored rhino lost their fighting power at the same time, but Nidorino, who had just been thrown away by King Nido's 100,000 horsepower hammer, walked unsteadily back to the battlefield, looking puzzled at the fainted wind speed dog and iron rhino. Xiaoxia was stunned when she saw this, and after Yuanzi touched herself with her elbow, she immediately announced, the wind speed dog and the armored rhinoceros have lost their fighting power. Eminem wins. Obviously, the 4 on Xiaomao's side have been all wiped out, while on Eminem's side, Nidorino is still standing. Although it is the weakest, but, indeed, Nidorino stood at the end. Nidorino came to the center in a leisurely manner at this time, shook his neck with a super fierce expression and shouted, Dono. Dono. Those who didn't know thought that the opponents were all killed by it. Seeing that the winner had already been decided, Xiaomao took the Feng Su dog back with a livid face. Eminem couldn't stand it any longer and took back Nidorino's Pokeball. Seeing that Xiaomao took a deep breath at this moment, as if he was adjusting his mood, Amu walked over when he saw this, but before he could speak, Xiaomao said, first, this time I lost. But next time I see you, I won't lose again, eh? We are going to fight next time we meet. Amu looked at him inexplicably. Xiaomao, who had just adjusted his mood, immediately turned pale, picked up the Pokeball and walked out. Great job. You actually beat that stinky guy. Yuanzi came over and patted Eminem on the shoulder. However, it was not easy for Eminem to win, so he quickly said, I also have to go to the Pokémon Center first. You go to the museum first, and I will go there later. In the case of Pokémon losing the battle and fainting, simple treatment is still needed, not by medicine. Generally speaking, when you are in the Pokéball, not only will you consume less energy and eat less, but your injuries will not worsen provided that the injuries are not caused by reluctantly yourself. Fainting after losing a battle is also a kind of protection. If you forcefully break through this layer of insurance, you will be in danger of aggravating your injuries. If you exceed the limit of self-recovery, your injuries will gradually aggravate in the Pokéball. No, we can take you back with us, Yuanzi suggested. Afterwards, the three of them returned to the Pokémon Center together, and Eminem planned to temporarily store the Pokéballs of Bulbweed, Coconut Egg Tree, and Iron Rhino in the Pokémon Center, but at this moment, Xiaomao, we met again. Eminem greeted Xiaomao very friendly. He also has a Pokémon that loses a battle and faints, so it is not surprising that he will be here. After Xiaomao saw Emu, he immediately looked like he had eaten the excrement product. Didn't someone say that the next time we meet? Xiaoxia was about to tease, but Xiaomao immediately interrupted. Don't be too pretentious. Wait, in the rookie competition, I will definitely not lose again, eh? In the rookie competition, the chance of us encountering each other is not high, right? Eminem questioned solemnly. Xiaomao. Seeing Xiaomao leaving with a cold face, Armu took a photo with the illustrated book and sent it to Dr. Oki. Anyway, he has defeated Xiaomao, and how to educate his grandson in the future is Dr. Oki's business. After that, Eminem, Xiaoxia, and Sonoko went to the fossil museum in Nabi City. The exhibition the day after tomorrow will be held there. It can be seen that although Yuanzi is not rebellious, he does not run away from home easily, but he does not like to be too restrained, so he travels by taxi at this time. Has it closed today? Armu found that the fossil museum, one of the landmarks of Nabi City, was deserted at this time, but there were many junshas around. Well, after all, Lord Kid has already issued a notice letter, and the official opening will be held the day after tomorrow, so we need to make a good arrangement in these 2 days, so we will close the door for 2 days first. Yuanzi explained. The fossil museum in Nabi was originally the property of the Suzuki family. As for junsha outside, let alone, they are all here to guard against Kid. Most of them are from the mobile unit. The mobile unit is generally responsible for security work, and many of them have dog type Pokémon, flying Pokémon, etc. Keming, but he is not good at reasoning and solving cases, and generally he will not be Junsha of the Junsha clan. Seeing that the 3 of Amu were about to enter, several Junshas immediately stepped forward to inquire. But at this time, the curator of the museum hurried over and brought Miss Yuanzi and her friends in. Uncle, child, how has Master Kid sent a second notice? Sonoko asked the curator expectantly. The curator was quite old, with white hair and white beard, and he said helplessly when he saw this, "Not yet, Miss Yuanzi. Madam is also in the museum. Please pay attention later." If only her uncle Sonoko and her father were there, it would be alright. After all, Jirokichi has always been out of the box, and he usually likes Sonoko, who is also out of touch, and her father, Shiro, has a soft personality when facing his family. Beaut of her mother, Tomoko, hears her daughter calling her Master Kid, and still looks like adoring her. I'm afraid she will be taught a lesson. Yuanzi heard that his mother was there, so he restrained himself a little. Note 1. Stomping in the game, as long as the skill failed last time, it will be doubled this time, but for the sake of practical explanation, it will only take effect when it is changed to the last ground skill failed. Chapter 70 Disagreement. Armu and Xiaoxia heard that Yuanzi's parents and uncle were also there, so they wanted to come to greet them first. After all, they were entertained by others, but Yuanzi just led them to the exhibit. Gyarados wrath in the hall. A quarrel was heard. "You bastard. You lied to me. You are the one who hired illegal Pokémon hunters to mess with my expedition." A middle-aged man who looked to be in his 30s or 40s looked very excited to another middle-aged man who looked well-dressed and had a beard, but was held up by 2 security guards and could not rush forward. Another bald-headed old man who looked very strong next to him frowned and asked the mustache who had been challenged, "Mr. Dawu, what's going on?" Although the old man had a grey beard, he was very energetic. "What's the matter?" "It's nothing. It's always difficult to mortgage the collection to others, but the guy who regrets it afterwards, Mr. Prodigy, you should have seen it a lot, right?" The mustache explained lightly, then looked at the middle-aged man who was gnashing his teeth and said, "Hey, if you let me hear this without evidence, you will be sued for slander." Although Eminem didn't know what was going on, but this guy named Dawu had an annoying face and attitude, so he couldn't help asking Yuanzi in a low voice, "Who is that guy?" Yuanzi also looked at Director Chilled at this time. Seeing this, the old curator explained in a low voice, "Huh, you mean Mr. Big 5? He is the owner of the main exhibit, Gyarados Wrath." This time, however, Mr. Hisashi, as the former Tibetan owner, seems to have great doubts about this. Only then did Armu know that it turned out that Jirokichi rented this Gyarados Wrath from Dawu. It is true that Jirokichi usually buys exhibits if he can buy them and rents them for exhibitions if he can't buy them. It is doubtful, but judging from the reaction just now, it seems that this Mr. He mortgaged Gyarados Wrath to Dawu when he encountered difficulties. But he found that he had met before The difficulties encountered were basically caused by the big 5.G, as he also understood that continuing to simply blame Dabu would not change anything. So he shook off the bodyguard and said, "Just wait. I will definitely get the money before the mortgage expires." Saying that, Hisashi turned and left bitterly. After Hisashi left, Jirokichi couldn't help frowning and said, "Mr. Daewoo, if you are not the real owner of Gyarados Wrath, then when it is exhibited the day after tomorrow, the matter between them has nothing to do with Jiraiya, but Jiraiya doesn't want any changes in the exhibition. Mr. Jiraiya doesn't need to worry about that. What that guy mortgaged to me was only the Gyarados. If he wants to redeem it, he can do whatever he wants." Ha ha ha. Dabu laughed. "You guy, could it be?" Jiraiya seemed to realize something, and his tone became a little unfriendly. "Okay, first of all, I wish Mr. Jiraiya a smooth exhibition. Don't let the magician under the moonlight succeed. Otherwise, Suzuki Group will pay me a lot of money." Big Five said and left with airs when passing by Emu and the others. Dabu didn't give these passerbys much attention, but Yuanzi kept staring at him, although he didn't know exactly what was going on. But this guy was not a good person, no matter what point. Seeing that the guests had already left, Yuanzi also brought Armu and Zyraksha to the main hall, and saw a chubby man with a friendly face and wearing round glasses, who was comforting the angry man. "Jirokichi, Dad, Uncle, I'm back." Yuanzi greeted directly. Apparently the other one who is fatter is Sanoko's father, Shiro, although he is much younger than Jirokichi, but because of lack of exercise, he is overweight. He looks about the same age as Jirokichi, and he can already be regarded as an old man. Within the Suzuki Group, there is not only Shiro, but Shiro is regarded as the head of the entire Suzuki Group. Jiro Yoshi, who organized this exhibition, is regarded as a consultant in the Suzuki Group, and also has his own business, but the museum in Nabi City belongs to Shiro, so he was also present at this time. "Oh, Snoko. Your mother mentioned you just now. These two are Amu and Zyraksha, right?" "Well, yes, the world belongs to young people after all." Shilang seemed to have no pretensions, and said amicably. On the one hand, he has such a personality, unless he is angry, he will not easily show his prestige. On the other hand, he also knows that Armu and Zyraksha are indeed not ordinary young people, especially Armu. When the expert level pharmacist assessment is held in mid-July, I will also be in Rainbow City, and Suzuki's family also has a plantation and a pharmacy laboratory in Rainbow City. "Amu, if you want to practice something, you can just go directly at any time. I mentioned it to the supervisor there," Shilang said angrily. Although it was the first time to meet Mew, I was not sure if Mew could really pass the assessment, but from Sanoko's description, Shiro felt that if he failed this time, he would pass sooner or later. After all, Mew was so young. The Suzuki Group is far from being the opponent of the Girardi Group in the field of pharmacy, but its base camp is in the Kanto area. In the Quartz Alliance, it has a home court advantage over the Girardi Group in the Fingyuan area. It can also compete and win an extra future. An infinite number of pharmacists doesn't hurt either, of course. Shiro was not in such a hurry, and he was not that utilitarian. Since it happened that Eminem and Sonoko were still very close, it was just a matter of getting close first. How much medicinal materials and tree fruits can be consumed to practice hands? Then, I'm very grateful to Uncle Shiro. Eminem guessed that he would really need a professional environment to practice. Shiro didn't stay along either. After reminding Sonoko where to meet her mother, he left first. As the head of the Suzuki Group, he was also very busy. After Shilang left, Yuanzi saw that his uncle was still angry and immediately walked over. Amu originally thought that she was going to appease Jiraiya intimately, but she just opened her mouth and asked, "Uncle Jiraiya, what happened to that big five? He can't be a bad guy, right, Slim?" Shady co-authoring is still adding fuel to the fire. Jirokichi also said angrily at this time, "I was wondering how Gyarados Wrath would be in his hands. It seems that he really used some disgraceful means." "What Gyarados did he mention just now?" Yuanzi looked puzzled. Jirokichi looked at Sonoko, Armu, and Zyraksha, and then said, "You will know after you come and see. Is it okay? Has the arrangement been completed?" Sonoko asked enthusiastically. Point 4. Wrath of the Gyarados. A new exhibition hall was specially arranged in the museum, right in the middle of the main exhibition hall. Well, it's time to take a look, Jiraiya said, leading the way in himself, and the curator child quickly stepped forward to help him open the door. As soon as I entered the inner hall, I saw a not so small indoor swimming pool surrounded by a transparent glass wall, but it was not sealed. It was about 2 meters high. Looking at the wrath of the Gyarados, besides, there is really a Gyarados in the swimming pool at this time, and it is sleeping around the booth at this time. Chapter 71 Anti-Theft. Huh. Why is there a Gyarados on display together? Yuanzi wondered when he saw this. I saw the Tyrannosaurus sleeping in the artificial pool, which looked extraordinarily huge. Point of course, there is no essential difference, just bigger in addition. Eminem felt the old breath from it. The original owner of Gyarados Wrath was Ms. Mina, the king of the water element, and also the coordinator. Ms. Mina passed away 10 years ago. This Gyarados is Ms. Mina's signature Pokémon. After Ms. Mina's death, it has been guarding this Gyarados Wrath. Well, the Keystone pendant next to Gyarados Wrath was used by Ms. Mina during her lifetime. 3 years ago, Big 5 got Wrath of the Gyarados. I only found out later that this is the son of Ms. Mina, that is, the former Kashi, because the hired expedition team was attacked and lost everything. To repay the debt, that's why I mortgaged it to Big 5. Jiraiya explained. The so-called expedition team generally refers to a team that is active in deep mountains and old forests, conducts ecological scientific research, researches on historical relics, or explores precious resources. The harmony of this world, to a certain extent, is due to the abundance of resources, especially Pokémon resources. For example, a power plant only need to raise a group of Pikachu. Thunderbolt, clean and efficient. The role of the expedition team is tantamount to exploring new resources, especially in the original ecology outside the major regional alliances. There are many expedition teams. Hisashi has a more adventurous spirit. He invested in and organized an expedition team, hoping to make a fortune. The result was nothing. Then, this Gyarados. Yuanzi still felt that something was wrong. Jirokichi also said angrily at this time. At first, I thought that this exhibition hall was specially built because the Gyarados was unwilling to leave a symbol of the bond with its late old master. But it seems that the Big 5 is very it may be that they tampered with the contract when accepting the mortgage loan, and I have not read their contract specifically. After the death of Ms. Mina, this Gyarados has been reluctant to leave Gyarados Wrath, and no one can subdue it. Therefore, he was mortgaged to Dabu by Giazi together. But listening to what Big 5 said before, it seems that even if Giazi brought the money, he can only redeem the Gyarados. No wonder Jiraiya immediately realized that there might be a problem with the mortgage contract. Where's Xiaolin and Conan? Next time, bring them to see the Big 5. Eminem suggested with a sense of justice. This guy might need a little help from Conan. What does Xiaolin see him doing? Sonoko didn't react and immediately complained to Jiraiya. Uncle, then why do you still borrow his Gyarados Wrath to exhibit? I think that guy may be still waiting for Master Kid to steal this Gyarados Wrath so that we can compensate him. As soon as Kid was mentioned, Jiraiya immediately regained his spirit. Impossible. That thief will never let him get what he wants this time. Not to mention other extra arrangements. This Gyarados is the strongest guard. This is the Gyarados of the heavenly king level, and they are different from ordinary guards. No matter who the thief becomes, the Gyarados will not let him approach. Eminem understands what he said. It seems that Kid in here is also good at disguise, but can't even judge dog Pokémon. Amu faintly felt that it was not just disguise. Anyone, as a guard, may be deceived, but this Gyarados won't. Jiraiya said, jumping up with a strong body, grabbing the upper edge of the glass wall, and then looking like he was going to climb up. The Gyarados, who had closed its eyes for a nap, immediately opened them and glared at Jirokichi. At the same time, it stood up from the water, looking like it was about to attack Consultant Jirokichi. Upon seeing this, Director Chad hurried forward to help Jirokichi get down. Jirokichi also retreated back. He was just demonstrating that even he himself would be attacked by the Gyarados if he didn't give enough comfort and gestures when he touched it. To a certain extent, this is indeed a guard who is not afraid of changing clothes, because whether it becomes the titular owner of Gyarados Wrath, Big 5, or its successor, Hisashi, the Gyarados will not let them approach easily. Big 5 often complains that this guy is in the way, but doesn't he have a very strong Pokémon that can hypnosis powder? Sonoko said immediately, hahaha, that little thief's Pokémon is very strong. It can only be said that he has some skills, but this Gyarados has a king level combat power. Judging from the performance of that little thief in the past, it is impossible to hypnotize it. Jiraiya laughed. Whether it is hypnotism, hypnosis powder, grass flute, yawn, or even other negative effects, the hit rate is not only a matter of skill, but also a matter of ability. If a divine beast is lying there, a group of competition level Pokémon will definitely not be able to urge it. If it weren't for the Big 5 guy's problem. Jiroyoshi actually liked this exhibit very much. Bring a bodyguard with him, but at this moment, another footstep came from the entrance of the exhibition hall. But this way, our people can't get close. I saw Junsha with a mustache walking over with an unhappy expression on his face. Silver. Police department, how many times has that little thief pretended to be one of yours and stole the exhibits? Jiraiya immediately sarcastically said. Jinzo Nakamori has almost become the police department in charge of Phantom Thief Kid. The Keitao Kid must have used the power of Pokémon when he acted, so the Junsha clan also tried. However, because they were not violent criminals and the conflict was small, they couldn't stop Kid's Pokémon, and even now they don't even know what Pokémon Kid has, so the Junsha clan didn't stare at Kid. It's just a gem. It's not like stealing a Pokémon. In addition, Yinsen was accompanied by another police officer that Eminem knew well. Yo. It turns out that you have already arrived in Nabi City. Why didn't you come to me first? Yumi greeted. I've been preparing for a battle before, and this is just a free time. Amu quickly explained. You seem to be very busy, but even if you came to look for me a few days ago, I'm afraid you couldn't find me. I have solved 2 big cases, Yumi said, puffing her chest out. Eminem always felt that she lacked a big bird. No, it was Badio's Megastone, but she said, of course System A is more busy. From the corner of Eminem's eyes, he noticed Sonoko curling his lips at this time, and he could basically guess how Yumi's 2 big cases were solved. This is Wrath of the Gyarados. Yumi walked a few steps closer and looked curiously at the booth on the pool. Jinzo is in charge of kid-related cases, and Yumi is the police department in charge of the area where the fossil museum is located, but if it's there, it's too inconvenient for those who come to watch the exhibition, right? Yuanzi still looked up at the high platform in the pool at this time. Wouldn't gems be safest locked in a treasury? Why is there an exhibition when Kid has issued a preview? Of course it is Wave. If the exhibition is not well organized, it is meaningless. No, when it's officially on display. Jirokichi said, couldn't help but smile confidently, took out the remote control, and pressed the switch. I saw that the platform that was originally higher than the pool sank into the water at this time, but the glass wall was raised even more, and it became the Wrath of the Gyarados in the water through the glass wall. I don't know if that little thief can go diving in a white dress. Hahaha. Jiraiya couldn't help laughing when he thought of Kid's distressed appearance. Chapter 72 Devil 039 S number. Mr. Jirokichi in the pool. Hahaha. Hiccup. Jirokichi was laughing when Chilled interrupted him. I saw the old curator pointing to the pool in surprise and looking along his finger. A card was slowly falling into the water. Quickly take it out. Yinsen Police Department said anxiously. On Kid's card, there are often some hints written, sometimes to show off, sometimes to mislead. Just at this time, it fell into the mouth of the Gyarados, which was pretending to be asleep in the water. As we all know, the mouth of the Gyarados is usually kept open, and it will only close when chewing and biting. The Gyarados was stimulated by a foreign object, shook its head instinctively, and sprayed casually. A wave of water came out from the top of the glass wall, as if a basin of water was poured down, and it was drenching Jiroyoshi who was approaching it. But at last the card was also brought out by this gust of water. Jirokichi pushed away Chad who was supporting him, and picked up the card, regardless of his body being soaked. This is when the inverted demon returns. I will walk from the moonlight. Jirokichi muttered with a puzzled expression point at the same time. Yumi immediately looked around cautiously. The piece of paper just appeared, which means the person should be here, over there. Yuanzi shouted suddenly, pointing at the roof point. Everyone looked up, only to see on the skylight, a figure that was throwing a white cloak away from the back. Damn it. People outside, seal off the roof of the museum. Really, do you have to choose an exhibition hall with a skylight? Yinsen yelled into the walkie-talkie, and then looked at Jirokichi angrily. Jirokichi said disdainfully, you really don't understand. Megastones with evil energy will become more charming under the moonlight. That's why I specially chose this exhibition hall with 5 light transmitting skylights directly above and above the surrounding sides. But this is bulletproof glass, right? There is no sign of opening. Yumi still looked suspiciously at the few people in front of her. When he glanced at Eminem, he deliberately asked, hey, after drinking last time, when you carried me back to the dormitory, where did you put your hands? Zyuksha and Yuanzi looked over in surprise. When they heard this, Yinsen also had an expression of sure enough, he is a young man. Looking at it gossipingly, Jiriji and Chad, who are still older, are still unmoved. Armu rolled his eyes and said, what? I obviously released Star, and he went back behind his back, while Yumi confirmed that Eminem was not pretending. She released Star and Hajin, and Feng Speed Dog and Henry Lugia sniffed at the few people present, especially the card. If he could smell something strange, he would have been caught long ago. Yinsen was inexplicably upset that others underestimated Kid Point at this moment. Junsha from the mobile unit came over and reported at the door. The Yinsen Police Department and the Yumui Police Department. There are people outside who claim to be Detective Kagoro and want to come in. What? Little 5 and 6. Drive away. Yinsen said impatiently. But Jirokichi said at this moment, no, Mr. Kagoro was invited by the old man. Chilled, go and invite him in. TCH. Yinsen curled his lips at this troublesome big dog. However, this is the museum of Suzuki's family after all, so it's not easy for him to forcibly block it. Kagoro is not the only one here. Zyulan. This way. Yuanzi immediately called Zyulan. With Kagoro, Ran, and Conan. Kagoro tugged at his collar and said, ahem, Advisor Jirokichi, I heard that kid has a new notice. Conan tiptoed to Eminem and asked in a low voice, how is the situation? Although, logically, he and Mew often don't understand each other, Conan does admit that Mew can reason things out. Sometimes it's that kind of, obviously all kinds of conditions are guessed wrong, but the type of result is deduced by arbitrary. It's a pity you would have come half an hour earlier, Eminem said regretfully. Huh? Did something happen? Conan asked with a question mark. There was a particularly nasty guy just now. If you were here, he would never leave alive. Amu said firmly. Conan, knowing that Eminem was teasing himself again, Conan just rolled his eyes and then asked Eminem about the content of the card. Inverted demon. Conan pinched his chin and thought. And at this moment, Kagoro suddenly said, I know, Conan looked over in surprise, and at the same time, a bad premonition rose in his heart. The inverted demon must be Zhen Wulang. Wait until May 5th. That kid will use Zhen Wulang to steal this. Gyarados Wrath. Kagoro said with certainty. War Dancer, a fighting type Pokémon that uses a sharp horns on its head to move and attack in an upside down position. Yes, is that so? Yinsen always felt something strange. It must be so, right? Think about it. Isn't the inverted Pokémon the same as War Dancer? Ha ha ha. Kagoro proudly cracked successfully. But isn't this the time when it was written? And can Wulang can hide it? Jiriji didn't think that kid wanted to kill him. Come in handstand with War Dancer or ride in with War Dancer. This is a bit too conspicuous, but the famous Kagoro said so. At this moment, Conan suddenly said, Eminem, looked at the showman blankly. Conan continued to look at Eminem and said, it turns out that in the Gala and Carlos areas, there is a legend that 7:7:7 is the moment of God, and Arceus also created it at 7:7:7 in the Hezhang area. According to the legend of the first ray of light, in the mysticism of the Gala region, it is also believed that 7 is a number with magical power. Well said. This is also the first time Eminem knows about this kind of thing. Little devil, keep your chatter down. Kagoro thought that Conan was talking useless at this time. Conan lowered his head and said reflectively through the lens, in contrast, 6 is considered to be the number of the devil, and the time of the devil is 6:6:6. Several other people were taken aback when they heard this. 6:6:6. Are you really talking about the time? Yinsen looked at the teaser card again after receiving the reminder, but it's past 6 o'clock, the moon hasn't come out yet, and it's not the best viewing time yet. Curator Child said, puzzled. Stand on your head. I know. It means that the second is 9:9 in the evening. Jiriji also reacted at this time. Chapter 73. In the Nabi Fossil Museum, everyone is analyzing and discussing Kid's time and method of committing the crime, but Eminem is not interested. I don't know Kid anyway, and the gems don't belong to me. Yuanzi rolled his eyes and quietly waved his hands to greet Xiaolan, Xiaoxia, and Emu, and was about to leave this small exhibition hall and go to other exhibition halls, while no one was around. As a result, as soon as the four of them came out, Xiaolan found that Conan was not together, and when she was about to go back to look for it, there was a sudden sound of Dada footsteps with high heels. Yuanzi wanted to hide when he heard it, but he was blocked. I saw a woman who looked very similar to Ayako, and at this time, walked over majestically. The face is very similar to Ayako, so naturally she also has similarities with Sonoko, but the first time I saw her, Amu must have thought of Sonoko's sister Ayako. The overall facial features are more like Ayako, with short hair, and a beauty mole under her left eye is very conspicuous, but unlike Ayako and Sonoko, her eyes are very sharp, and her whole person has a feeling of not to be messed with. Yuanzi, what are you going to do? This man's voice was deep and hoarse, and his tone seemed very powerful. Mom, of course I'm going to see you. Haha, ha. Yuanzi laughed dryly. Xiaolan at the side hurriedly greeted, hello, auntie, that's right, this is Sonoko and Ayako's mother, and Shiro's virtuous housemate. No, it's the friend of the virtuous foreign aide. Tomoko is not only a husband and son, but also deeply involved in the leadership and decision making of the Suzuki group. His style is very complementary to the good-natured Shiro. Or it is precisely because of his friends that Shiro, the head of the family, can maintain the image of a good old man, isn't this Xiaolan? The longer she grows, the more beautiful she is. Sonoko is with you, so Shiro and I can rest assured. Tomoko knew Xiaolan's appearance for a long time, and even exchanged greetings in a tone of voice. Where is it? You are too flattering. Xiaolan really wanted to say politely, Yuanzi usually takes care of me, but she couldn't say it. By the way, Mom, let me introduce you. This is Xiaoxia, and this is Eminem. Yuanzi quickly took the opportunity to change the topic. It's also because Yuanzi understands that with the presence of outsiders, Mom won't talk about herself. I heard Sonoko mention you, and they are all good-looking talents. Tomoko looked at Xiaoxia and Amu carefully, especially staying on Amu for a while. Amu didn't find it strange either. After all, Xiaoxia's father was indeed not a simple person. How could it be simple to be the owner of one of the 6 official gymnasiums? But I'm even more difficult, not to mention becoming the youngest expert pharmacist, and Grandma Leixi must be a master pharmacist, of course. Eminem didn't think that Yuanzi would talk to her mother about these things. Most of them simply mentioned some interesting things, but it was very easy for Shilang and his wife to find out these things, and they would definitely confirm who their daughter was in contact with. I also want to thank you, Mew, for saving Sonoko. After Dora went to Fingilan, her wings became stiff. Her elder sister is about to get married. Shiro and I only have one daughter left. if something happens to her, not only me and her father, even a huge blow to the Suzuki Foundation. Tomoko said with some meaning. Mom. Yuanzi felt that her mother's words were too exaggerated. Eminem didn't know why it was so grand, but why didn't he hear too much thanks, and how to say it, as if Daigo and Ayako are dead. Ayako is only engaged, and as for Daigo, I heard that there is a lot of popularity in the Honan area, and he is likely to be the next Hon champion. Why is there only Yuanzi by my side? Do you think Yuanzi can still be a little padded jacket? The Suzuki group isn't that easy to be hit, is it? Eminem instinctively said modestly. Hi. Sonoko glanced at him. If he didn't already know Eminem, Sonoko would definitely think that he was deliberately mocking himself as unimportant. Xiaolan noticed that Aunt Tomoko also subtly showed a speechless expression at this time, and immediately called Yuanzi away. Obviously Tomoko had something to teach her daughter. However, he was also very thoughtful, calling the curator child over and asking him to show the three of them around. To Eminem's surprise, Conan followed chilled. Really? Conan, I was still looking for you just now. Are you making trouble for dad and them again? It's not allowed. Xiaolan taught. Conan couldn't explain it, so he just smirked and passed the test. Afterwards, Xiaolan led him and listened to curator child's explanation. Together the three of Eminem also enjoyed a super VIP treatment. Not only the curator personally explained, but also booked out. Originally, Eminem thought that the fossil museum would be boring, but after visiting it, he completely changed his opinion. It's not just fossils here. In other words, most of the fossils here are Pokémon fossils, and there are even living fossil Pokémon. In recent years, the technology that can resurrect Pokémon fossils has appeared. It is not yet perfect, but it is also advancing step by step. In several types of fossil Pokémon, the technology has basically stabilized. And in the fossil museum, there are also some breeding halls for fossil Pokémon. Grandpa. Curator, why did Pokémon appear 2 million years ago, but the fossils here are marked 130 million years old? Grandpa. Curator, is the ancient coelacanth a fossil Pokémon? Grandpa. Curator, why are there no fossils left for non-fossil Pokémon? There are no ancient forms of them. Did they appear suddenly? Grandpa. Curator. Conan directly opened the 100,000 wise mode, as if he was curious about everything, and these questions. Some of them can be explained by chilled, and some cannot be explained at all. They are the unsolved mysteries of the Pokémon world. Conan, be more honest. Xiaolan saw that the curator was getting overwhelmed, so she quickly stopped Conan. But at this moment, over there is the Ammonite Beast Hall. I want to see live Ammonite beasts. Conan said, running to the side like a child. Conan. Xiaolan couldn't help feeling a headache, and at the same time, apologized to director child. It's okay, let's go there first. Chilled said with a good temper. Eminem also looked at his back suspiciously. Conan seemed to be testing him. But, so far, it seems that old Chilled has no problem with his knowledge. What cannot be answered are all questions that the academic world has no conclusions, or even no explanation. Then a few people came to the Ammonite Museum, where there are not only fossils, but also living ammonites and spiny ammonites. Behind the fossil booth, there is a glass wall, and on the other side of the wall is a corner of the breeding ground for ammonites and pricky ammonites. From here, you can see the living ammonites inside. Chapter 74. Fossil Pokémon that have just been revived are often very restless and uncomfortable with the environment. Therefore, in some mimetic scenes, it is necessary to recuperate for a period of time, and then release or subdue training. After getting used to it. Ammonites and their evolved spiny ammonites are relatively gentle among fossil Pokémon, but if they are fossilized pterosaurs, they must be specially guarded when they are resurrected to avoid accidents. The origin of fossil Pokémon has always been debated. After all, it involves the unsolved mystery of the origin of Pokémon. Most Pokémon originated 2 million years ago. This period is also known as the period of the explosion of Pokémon species. Pokémon was born 2 million years ago, and the hypothesis of alien visitors were one cell. However, later the fossils of ancient Pokémon were discovered, and the fossil resurrection technology gradually matured, and this view became fragile. The revived Pokémon in the fossils are undoubtedly Pokémon. They can also be divided into egg groups, and then mate with modern Pokémon in the same egg group. And unlike ancient Pokémon, these fossil Pokémon are not a certain variant of modern Pokémon, but real different types of Pokémon, which can reproduce stably in modern times. This makes the origin of Pokémon more confusing. Grandpa. Curator. When reviving a fossil Pokémon, do you only need a part of the fossil? Isn't that one Pokémon fossil able to resurrect many living fossil Pokémon? Conan blinked his big eyes at this time. Looking at the aging Childs, it is rumored that the resurrected fossil Pokémon will retain some memories of prehistoric times, so it is considered resurrection, not cloned after extracting genes in this world. Because of the different expression forms of genes, cloning is much more difficult than resurrecting fossils, and it only exists in theory. But then Conan's question makes sense. No. Actually resurrecting fossils. It's better to say it's helping fossils to be resurrected. The fossil itself needs to meet certain requirements. For example, the fossils on display cannot be resurrected, or fossils that can be resurrected have been extracted. Otherwise, there would not be so many fossils to be displayed. Look at this spiny ammonite fossil. It's a whole shell fossil. Child said, pointing to a completely petrified spiny ammonite shell next to it. After the three of Eminem looked at it, Child pointed to the inside of the shell and said, actually, in this living room, a life essence was extracted before, and it was also with that the first one here was revived. An ammonite beast. As for the remaining fossils, they are just fossils, and cannot be used for resurrection. Resurrection is like a process of rebirth. Although it is different from birth, it is also the beginning of a new life. Therefore, even if it is a fossil in an evolutionary form, what is resurrected is the original form of Pokémon, but there will be a vague prehistoric memory only. As Child said, he patted Conan's head and seemed to like this curious child very much. It turns out that it is like this. Conan still had a look of enlightenment in the first sentence, but he said in a changed tone in the last sentence, but, Mr. Curator, I just switched the brands of these two exhibits. Mr. Curator, you won't be wrong, will you? Conan said, and took out the ammonite fossil sign in his hand. Conan. Xiolan suddenly became embarrassed, thinking that Conan was embarrassing Mr. Curator. No way, no way. Mr. Curator, it's not true that you just memorize the information, but you don't actually have any impression of such a meaningful prickly ammonite fossil, right? Mew also realized at this time. What's up, Mew? Xyarksha and Xyalan looked at Mew in surprise. Conan is nothing but a brat. Why is Eminem also bare at the same time? I also found that Mew released the Determin and the Naughty Thunder Bomb, and I also vaguely understood that Mew had other intentions. TCH. Old Child made a displeased voice, and at the same time, his body, which was slightly hunched, straightened up at this moment. 100,000 volts. Shadow Ball. Eminem directly directed Boom and Coffin to attack Old Child's but both of them hesitated for a while, especially Coffin, whose skills were not yet ready. Taking advantage of this moment of hesitation, Director Child did a backflip on the spot to avoid the electric shock, and at the same time, jumped onto the booth beside him. This skill is a little too vigorous. Eminem definitely can't do it now. Looks like it has been discovered. A young voice came out of Child's mouth. At the same time, I saw him tugging on his shoulders, and suddenly his suit fell off, revealing a white dress, a top hat on his head, and the single frame glasses on his face, making it difficult to see the specific facial features. Eminem can be sure that this is by no means a 1-second change, but some kind of special ability, probably the ability of Pokémon. And the changed clothes disappeared on the way to the ground. Yes, it's Kid. Xyarksha asked in surprise. Kid. Xyalan quickly became alert. Ladies and gentlemen, don't be nervous. Today I'm just here to visit the exhibition hall and give you a new notice. See you the night after tomorrow. As Kid said, he took out a gun-like thing from his pocket and pointed it at the roof. At the same time, Conan squatted down and began to twist the knob on the shoe. Boom. Biu. Duang. Conan pressed his belt, and suddenly the power of the Wava guide condensed into a ball, and then kicked the energy bomb out, while Kid was already flying into the air along the launch cable, and then his whole body flashed. Unexpectedly it passed through the glass of the roof skylight out of thin air. Instead, Conan's energy bomb was blocked by the glass wall. Well, as I said before, the glass here is bulletproof. Wave missiles are also bombs, aren't they? Ding ding ding. As the alarm sounded, security personnel and Junsha rushed over here immediately. Eminem explained the situation to them at this point, just not emphasizing Conan too much. Eminem was not too surprised by the equipment of Conan and Kid. The technology in this world, compared to the world before Eminem traveled, was originally at the level of near future. But the direction of development was not quite the same. Weapons, especially thermal weapons, have hardly been developed. After all, prey foreign or sent out of Pokémon with the characteristic of moisture can abolish thermal weapons in large numbers, so it has not been developed from the beginning. However, some powerful devices are not uncommon, especially the Wava guide power that humans can master, which once derived a technological branch of Wava guide weapons, such as the Wava guide belt that Conan just showed. Chapter 75 Lottery. Child was pretended by Kid. What about him now? Quick. Contact him. What? He asked for leave today for tooth extraction. Damn it. Kid must have intercepted his leave call and pretended to be the museum to approve it. Both Jirokichi and Jinzo were very angry. The real child didn't come to work at all today. It's just that Kid intercepted the communication so that neither party noticed it. The reason why Conan was able to see through it was after listening to the process of the previous notice letter appearing. He guessed it and was convinced by him later. The notice letter that appeared out of thin air at that time was actually a thin slice of some ice type Pokémon that Kid was carrying, which was frozen out of the air, so it just fell into the mouth of the Gyarados, and it attracted such a big reaction. The ice type Pokémon was probably on the roof at the time, using its mental power to freeze ice flakes in the pool from a distance, and it was wearing clothes similar to Kid's usual clothes, making people mistakenly think that Kid was leaving from above. As for the card with the words on it, Child prepared it in advance and placed it by magic when he helped Jirokichi in the past, and the real ice sheet had already melted, so that's how it is. Eminem really felt at the time that the teaser letter of appearing out of thin air was amazing but after being explained by Conan, it suddenly became dull. Actually, I found some clues, and you will accompany me later. Conan wanted to borrow Eminem as a shield. After all, in his capacity, it is difficult to be allowed to act alone. However, you interrupted. I won't accompany you anymore. Tomorrow, I will go to challenge the gymnasium in Nabi City. When the exhibition is held the day after tomorrow, I will come and watch the fun. Ahem. I mean to watch the exhibition, eh? Conan was taken aback when he heard the words, seeing that Eminem didn't mean to be joking at all, and he didn't seem to want to investigate alone, so he asked in surprise, wait, you are not curious what will happen to Kid then? Committing a crime? Didn't feel challenged? Huh? What kind of challenge is this? The notice letter is not for me. I'm a trainer and a pharmacist, not a detective and a guard. Amu gave him a white look, then turned and left without Em as his guardian, and without a reason to stay in the museum. Conan was naturally taken away by Xylan. Eminem is indeed preparing for the challenge of the gymnasium. Although the third badge is not a challenge for Eminem, it will take more than half a day to go through the process. The next day, that is, May 4th, Eminem and Xylaksha went to the Nabi Gym together. The official gymnasium in Nabi City. The assessment rules for the third badge are also 3 Pokémon singles. Amu directly used an armored rhinoceros to penetrate the gym trainer who was being assessed. On the one hand, the difficulty of the assessment for the third badge is not high. On the other hand, the rock system is already restrained by the ground system. Ironclad rhinos' low special defense weakness will not be targeted at all. There are very few rock type special attackers, and in the challenge of the gymnasium, Eminem has not encountered any point in this way. Even if the skill preparation speed is very slow, the iron armored rhino will directly drive the opponent to the ground and finally complete the 1 through 3 For Zyloxia, there is no difficulty. After all, the water system restrains the rock system point in the end. The two still ended up rejecting the themed badge box promoted by the gymnasium and walked out of the gymnasium swaggeringly. I asked Yuan-Zi and the others to go shopping together in the afternoon. Do you want to go together? Zyloxia asked Armu. Forget it. I'm going to go to the mall to have a look. I'm going to go to Eugene Mountain later. I have to be more prepared. Of course, Armu didn't forget the test given to him by teacher Jumu Point. In fact, it is also a kind of guidance. The core area of Eugene Mountain. There should be many Pippas thriving point. However, as the Kanto area, Mount Tsukumi is almost the northernmost Pokémon inhabited mountain range, so it is also dangerous. So you need to be fully prepared. And Zyloxia street shopping is definitely not in the outdoor supplies area. And Armu is not interested in girls street shopping, so he doesn't go with them. Hey, are you going today? If you need anything, prepare a copy for me. Zyloxia asked directly. Eminem didn't refuse either, because Eugene Mountain is what I want to go to. Zyloxia is completely accommodating Eminem's route arrangement. Otherwise there are no water type Pokémon in Eugene Mountain. What is Zyloxia going there for? When I went to Bailu Lake before, Zyloxia was also there to prepare supplies for the water side. Eminem went directly to the Dadao Temple shopping mall and started to scan the goods according to the recommendation of Yuji Anshin Adventure. In this regard, Eminem is not stingy. There are more convenient and more secure options. Eminem can pay more, but he will do nothing for the theme badge box and other ostentation. If you want to go to Eugene Mountain, you must buy a map. This map is the most detailed, and it is most suitable for trainers who are going for the first time. This is a special insect repellent. There are a lot of mosquitoes in Eugene Mountain this season. If you don't have a grass type Pokémon, I suggest you prepare it. Also, this is a compilation of the legends of Mount Eugene. Sure enough, after proposing going to Eugene Mountain, the shopping guide recommended a lot of things to Eminem. Forget about repelling insects. Don't look at grass type Pokémon being restrained by insects, but any pollen type ability can repel ordinary mosquitoes. This map, why is it only on the periphery? Eminem looked at the most important map and found that it was not as good as the one in his illustrated book. It's a protected area inside. Our DOC shopping mall doesn't sell contraband. The shopping guide said quickly. Only then did Armu know that the outer area of Eugene Mountain is an open area, and there are even hot springs and tourist attractions, but the interior is a protected area, but it is not blocked or restricted. Because the area is too large, it is not easy to block it. The way to protect it is to classify the specific internal information as confidential information. Only trainers with 9 badges or more, or with the permission of the Quartz Alliance, can obtain it. And in the protected area, there is a limit to catching and subduing Pokémon, and each trainer can't exceed 2 per year. The information of the catching location can be found on the Pokéball, but since there is only a map of the outer terrain, then Eminem has no interest, and finally only bought some necessary supplies in the mountains. After paying the bill, the cashier suddenly stopped Eminem. Wait, sir. If you spend more than 300,000 yuan at the Yuji Anshin counter, you can get a chance to draw a lottery. This is a lottery ticket. Maybe it was because I was not very interested in seeing Eminem, so the cashier reminded again. In addition to some souvenirs, there are also vouchers for merchants at the foot of Eugene Mountain. If you want to go to Eugene Mountain, it is still very practical. Eminem thinks it's even more useless co-authoring is, because I see that I'm going to Eugene Mountain, and I want to put up a special wave of advertisements. This wave is a win-win situation, and AOC Mall has won twice, but when passing by the service desk, Armu saw that there was no one there, so he went to smoke for the time being. It is the simplest lottery draw. In order to avoid people cheating with Pokémon, the staff came to shake it. When they saw the silver balls falling out, the staff at the lottery office immediately yelled, "Congratulations to the silver prize winner. You are the winner of this year's prize. First silver award winner. Let's take a look at the prizes." The staff member opened the silver ball and saw the note inside. He was obviously taken aback for a moment and then said, "Yes, well, it is a coupon for a free suite at Yaozen Hot Spring Hotel. Why don't you shout?" Eminem looked at him wonderingly. Ha ha, if you take it well, guests, you can go here for free for one day. But this is just a cooperation project. If the hot spring hotel does not entertain you, you can complain to us. As for other problems such as poor hospitality, this mall will not accept it. Be responsible, the staff emphasized, while handing the coupons to Eminem. Eminem felt more and more that there was something wrong here. End of this chapter. Thank you very much for reaching the end. Don't forget to like. Looking for more exclusive content and immediate access? Subscribe to our Patreon. Remember, every like, subscription, or donation encourages us to continue. Thanks to everyone. See you in the next video.